So you figured out that you wanted to go in a different path. Was it from having that moment of like, okay, now is the time to like ask why? Where was that moment where you said, okay, like trying to like be this like character from this Instagram post or
Mm.
whatever? When did you like make that like, no, this is where I'm supposed to be?
Um, I had noticed that I was going into I was having a pattern of like self-destruction,
Okay.
and I noticed that I was repeating mistakes, and I
Mm,
do not like repeating mistakes. So I
right.
was like, okay, girl, this is our like fourth time. That's a lot, even
Okay.
for us. That's a lot. So one day I remember like realizing, like, oh, this is you. Like, your life's not happening to you. You're creating your life. And like, this is what you decided to do. And I was like, oh, I'm embarrassed. And I was like, oh my
Mm,
God, like, I'm ashamed of my life. And I didn't realize until that moment, like, I made this. Like, you make your bed, you gotta lay in it.
yeah.
I made my bed and it was disgusting. Yeah, I think so. How are you?
Doing pretty good. What about you?
Doing pretty good. Can't complain. I am feeling how am I feeling? I'm feeling like a bit tired. I won't lie to you. So I am feeling a little bit brain fogged. I think I told you that in DMs. But it's been this
Mm.
whole week. So just forgive me if I slur my words or mumble a lot.
Look, after last night, I cannot judge anybody, okay?
That
On
that
any
stream you mean? The
performance.
stream you're doing?
Yeah.
Honestly,
Yeah,
I
I
do that.
can't judge anybody.
I do it all the time. I do like test streams where no one can see me, and I'm always like testing things. It's because you know what? The audience will lie to you. Don't trust my audience is a lying audience. They lie to me. They're always like, Brittany, your audio's great. And then I'll go listen to it. And I'm like, it's literally horrible. But they don't know because
Mm.
they're all listening on different devices. So that's the worst part is like you can't even tell how to have good audio because it depends on what you're judging it on.
Yeah, I mean, the last 3 streams I did, some people from my audience were like, "Bro, you're muted. Bro, you're muted." And I'm like, "What the?" And it got so bad last night, I was audible, Wick and everyone else muted. So I mean, like,
What?
yeah, I mean, it's because I honestly, I'm just lazy. I'm willing to admit I'm lazy. I haven't mapped out all my tech the way I was supposed to, so I got what I deserved.
You know what?
But I'm
It's a
good
learning
now.
curve. You're doing really good though for
Yeah,
somebody who just started off doing everything. So I mean, it's a part of the learning curve.
appreciate that. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so I'm excited. I would love to hear your thoughts. Did you watch the H3 Fresh and Fit conversation? Bro, I've
In
watched
prep for
it.
this, I watched. Yeah.
I've watched it 3 times because I watched my own stream to see how like things were going. I watched Tomfoolery and I watched Papa Gut. So now I have seen that stream so many times. I'm over it. I watched them all in times 2. What did you think?
Well, give me a second. Okay, okay, hold up. I'm trying to talk, but I'm like, it was a like, you ever seen that shit of you ever see like a Mexican standoff?
Yeah,
That's them. The whole
bro.
stream, just like, I got you. No, I've got you. No, what do you remember when you said this? No, remember when you said that?
Why do you think they're doing it? Tell me for real, why did they even do that collab?
Okay, I you said that it was like for the clicks and for the money.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's like maybe 20%. But
Mm-hmm.
I think 80% of it is like, I hate this motherfucker. I'm gonna get him. I think because you know Ethan, he's really good at come on my stream. We'll have a talk. And then he springs like
Yeah.
when you were 12 and you stepped on a crack and broke someone's mother's back. Like he brings up all of this stuff that you forgot you did. Like remember when you
Yeah.
did that? I swear Ethan's more federal than Myron, and Myron was an
Mm.
actual federal agent. Ethan just bringing up stuff. I'm like, how does he even like? Remember when you deleted 20 videos last week? I'm like, you're watching that? So it was I think Ethan was just, having his monthly remember when you did this confrontation.
But what a decision to make. Like, I think that's what confuses me about this space. Like, I still
Mhm.
can't get over it. And everyone, okay, first of all, I laugh that the audience keeps mixing up Ab and Preach and Fresh and Fit. That will never not be funny to me. Like, the comment section on my video is
Yeah.
like, your relationship with Myron is why you're biased. And I was like, Myron? And I'm like, what? And they're like, the reason you like Fresh and Fit. I'm like, who? What? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And I'm realizing, like, okay, what I don't understand about this space is like, why would Ethan not talk to Ab and Preach, but would talk to Fresh and Fit in any way justifiable in his bubble? Like, in his worldview, what is the allowance for that? To platform an essayer, he thinks is an essayer, basically give
Mhm.
him what? How many views collectively? They had like 36,000 on Fresh and Fit's end and like 45,000 on Ethan's.
Mhm.
Bro, how is that even make it make sense?
Yeah, it was like an arena full of people, if not more. I think Auburn Preach just aren't vulnerable. What are you gonna
Yeah.
catch them with?
Yeah, yeah,
Remember when
yeah.
you laughed at blah blah blah, or like yeah, like they're not vulnerable. Fresh and Fit are very vulnerable. They've had on Nick Fuentes. They've had
Yep.
their little KKK moment with Sneeko. Fresh and Fit are very vulnerable to Ethan's like, hey, remember when you did this? And plus, they've had beef for the hot like for the longest minute. Like
For sure.
this was a perfect time for Ethan to be like, come here, just come here and let me smack you upside the head when you're not looking. That's really what I think it is because Oppa and Preach, they just aren't vulnerable. They can't be caught on anything. So
Yeah. No, that makes sense to me. I do think that's ultimately what it is as well, where, again, I think Ab and Preach have a principled issue with
mhm.
Ethan, and Ethan has, I think, what he thinks is a principled issue. But you would think that and this is why I don't know why y'all are in politics. Like, this is why politics annoys me, because it feels like if we have issues on principles, we should be talking about that and talking about the best way
Mhm.
to have like some sort of balance. But the people aren't talking to people. They're creating fights with people that they are so far in terms of principles that they're never going. It's not like they're ever going to change each other's minds. Imagine the day Myron's like, Ethan, you're right.
Mm.
I'm gonna change. Like, that's not gonna happen. And Ethan's not gonna change. It's not
Right.
like all of a sudden Ethan's gonna be like, I'm a red pillar now. Like, that's not gonna happen. So I Bet and Preach are like scary, I think, because they are an opportunity to change. There might be change. There might, because they're just enough in the like reasonable. You know what I mean? So from like I guess
Yeah.
from that's why I think I'm annoyed at politics a little bit, because I'm looking at them like, you don't want a solution. You just want to argue.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's wartime. It was 100% wartime. Like I said, Op and Preach, they're not vulnerable, and on top of that, they're not. I don't want to say they don't participate in drama, but like they're just not as wild and out there. And their beef with
Yeah.
Ethan isn't as serious. Fresh and Fit have been no, Myron specifically has been accused of some crazy stuff by Ethan, so that beef is real.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then of course, with what happened on that stream, I mean, the beef was 100% real. It's great for views for one. It's a good dunk. It makes
Mm.
Ethan look really really good. I mean, he's had pretty good. I mean, the one with Pearl was crazy. That was
Yeah.
a really good dunk that he got.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think he got a little bit too excited, a little bit too cocky, because at the beginning, like he was a little bit shaky there. Like Myron and Fresh were getting him in the beginning, so I think it was just simple, calculated. Like, look, I'm gonna bring these guys on. I've got the drop on them. I know they deleted this video. They said this. They did that, and I'm just gonna humiliate them. And it's
Yeah.
like maybe it's just the entertainment, or I don't believe that everyone's spending every day trying to save the world. I think there are times where people just want to engage in just ridiculous like foolishness on the internet. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's kind of almost like a preference. I think it's the virtue signaling that gets like me so annoyed, but also like, of course, like humans are gonna human. So like, what are you gonna
Yeah,
do about it? You know what I mean? Do you have any
yeah.
thoughts about that live stream that you want to go over? Anything that stood out to you?
I think what's I think what stood out to me the most is like it's like what is like where are we going as streamers where we're
Mm,
like constantly trying to destroy each other with like is it because you would never really, I don't want to say you don't see stuff like this in real life, but people are a lot more hesitant to play the kind of games like Ethan. I feel like his accusation toward Myron was really really stretched,
bro.
and I'm sitting here and I'm like, you're playing with someone's life and you're exacerbating and really stretching at you're basically the one making the accusation. You're basically the one saying she didn't say it, but I'll say it for her. You did this. And I guess what I was wondering is like what I don't want to I mean we could just say humans are going to human, but like what is it about our like specific
Mm.
space that makes us so bloodthirsty? Because I know you've definitely linked it to like political streamers tend to be a little bit more devious or a
Well, they
little
want
bit
the
more
win,
like
right? The win feels so good. I'm not
mhm.
gonna lie, even when I see chat, they're like, Brittany's on fire right now. I'm like, oh my god, thank you. You get that
Right. I mean, I
like
get it.
you get that like praise, and you're like, I am on fire right now. And you're like, yeah, I'm so smart. And then you're like, what am I doing? And it's a little bit like that, but I do wonder. I've
Mhm.
been thinking about my own content too. Like, I want to make sure that my content isn't just tearing people down, because I'm so critical, and like, I literally tear apart people's videos. And I don't want to
Yeah.
be negative when people watch my videos, but I want people to feel like, oh, like I never thought about it that way. That's what I want from
Mhm.
my audience. But I feel like
Mhm.
Ethan and Fresh and Fit was less like, oh, I never thought about it that way, and were more like feeding into their audience's like need to like target someone and hate somebody. So I feel like in that regard, they obviously, it was like an arena. It was literally like a fucking gladiators, and the audience was
Mhm.
bloodthirsty, bro. Like bloodthirsty. Just watching Ethan's viewers reacting on my channel, which is so fair. Like I understand their perspective, but like they keep saying things like she pushed him off Myron, like she pushed Myron off her. Like that never happened. I've watched that live stream now 3 times,
Mhm.
and nowhere did anyone say she pushed. She didn't even say that. She said, I had my hands on his chest as if to indicate I'm not into him. And I was like, so I was like this? Like on his
Yeah.
shoulders? Or like on
Or
his
like
chest?
this,
Yeah,
or
were
like
you like
pushing.
this? And again,
Yeah.
I don't want women or men in vulnerable situations where they're gonna have to like fight for their life, but I want them to know the
Mhm.
difference between what is like, you have to know the context of the situation you're in, just socially, just to be appropriate, just to know what you're doing with your life. And so for her to say like this isn't what it is for me, but for Ethan to say like, oh, I'm gonna say what it is. Like I'm trying to figure out,
Mhm.
is that ever appropriate as well for Ethan to decide it was essay, even if she said it wasn't? That's interesting to me. Like, oh, that made me stop. Like, is that ever ethical for him to decide it is essay?
I think it's just fueled by smoke. Like I think Ethan has serious smoke from Myron. I think they
Bro.
both have some serious beef. And I think Ethan thought, this is a prime opportunity to destroy you. This is a story that's sound. Because I was watching the video that Ethan did, and I'm looking at his facial expressions and his body language, and I'm looking at the face of someone who thinks they finally got the silver bullet for their enemy. Like I'm seeing
Yeah.
the little like the well, sometimes when I watch academics, he's like this too, like where he's like he'll like instigate in a really funny and humorous way, where it's like,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, tell me more." Like Ethan had this really funny like body language where it's like it doesn't sound like you're listening to someone talk about being assaulted. It sounds like you're listening to someone giving you the info you need to finally get rid
Totally.
of one of your enemies.
To-
So I was like watching it
totally.
and I was dying laughing because I'm like, I can't. It's like I'm taking this woman seriously, but it's so hard to like take this conversation seriously because I'm looking at Ethan with his beanie on and
No,
he's just
literally.
smiling and
He's all like,
yeah,
oh, you
like
know what that
he's
sounds like? That sounds like an assault.
really, yeah. He's got this little like faint little like pleasure in his face, and I'm like, oh, this is just wartime. This is
100.
ammo for you. So I mean, like, I guess because I guess the world's just a fucked up place. Because the fact that we've gotten this, but you don't really, do we though? I'm over here confused because it's like maybe we've seen more chaos in other spaces in this one. I think their beef is the craziest in the political like socials.
Well, it's hard to say. You know, I read this I don't remember what I was watching, documentary, who knows, but I remember them saying like the forefathers themselves used to put articles about each other out and spread gossip about one another to win elections. I was like, man,
Mhm.
these drama queens, but the founding fathers, the forefathers, the people, wooden teeth bitches, what do we talk about? And I'm sitting here like, what is this? And I think there's something funny about that. Like there's this idea that we think in the past people had more decorum or people were more mature. I see no
No.
indication of that. I see zero indication of that. And so I think the aesthetic is different. I think every year we think the younger people are dominating the aesthetic, but I don't think that we were ever more mature before or less mature now. I think different parts of culture are being put at the forefront of our observations, and we're consuming it in the same way I'm old enough now that I remember hearing the same complaints from my parents, but it's like generationally. These young people, they're
Mhm.
ruining stuff. These young people, they're ruining stuff. These young people. And I'm like, huh, okay. So it's always just like the next person. Oh, and the old people, they're ruining stuff. The old people, they gave us this, the old people. And I'm like, okay, that's fair. That's very human. I think the same thing
Mhm.
happens in spaces like this where they want to think they're breaking cycles, but they're just repeating them with like different outfits. And I fall
Yeah.
like, even I want to fall into it because it sells. Like even my own brand, I've been more general. I've talked about bigger stories. I've talked about more celebrities in a way to bring in a more general audience because, you know, views are up, the bag is bagging, and I'm like, okay, let's go. But that
Mhm.
means that the audience is going to be less introspective by nature because they're coming for a
Mhm.
fight. They want to know what happened between Nicki Minaj and Cardi B and Nicki Minaj and this person and they want to know the drama. And so that's kind of
Mhm.
really the thing about humans that I've had to radically accept is that the world is a reflection of us as a whole. And the whole is like what it is. This is life.
Mhm.
And this is where we are right now. And that's going to be reflected down into our subcultures, whether we like to think we're different than the majority or not.
Yeah, I mean it's like the Bible verse, there's nothing new under the sun. I mean, in the past, people would just have their opponents killed. Like,
Yep.
you're annoying. Tomorrow when you wake up,
I think
goons are gonna
Putin
break
still
into your
does
crib and
that.
stab you.
I think Putin
I
still be
mean,
doing
yeah,
that.
people still do that today. But
Yeah.
in the West and America, you
Yeah.
can't get your hands that dirty anymore.
Yeah,
I mean, I think the closest we get to it is like rappers like catching each other at like clubs or whatever and like swing on you. But like outside of that, I mean, now like beef between two high profile people has to be far more hands off and more manipulative. So you start to see, even more, I don't know. I mean, like, I don't know what to describe what Ethan did because I'm looking at his body language as he's doing it. I'm like, oh, this is a dangerous motherfucker. Like, this is a guy who, if you beef with him, this guy will pull out all the stops to get rid of you. This man will make shit up. He'll take something and just stretch it as far as he can. And it doesn't look like Fresh and Fit are capable of that yet, or that they're because they were always like, if this had happened to you, what we would have done? We would have said, well, let's wait for the evidence. Ethan seems like he's in a place where he's like he's just like, look, let's get rid of these guys. We're gonna get them. And we see it with like how he interacts with Alpha and Preach. It's you said blah blah blah. Oh really, Ethan? Have you watched it? No, I haven't watched it. But it's he's an interesting character. I mean, I made a video about him one time, and like the goons came for me in the comments. This was like a year ago. The goons came for me in the comment section. So yeah, that H3 camp is very, very they're a little scary over there.
Look, and I like H3 as a Brittany. Like, I do watch the podcasts and everything, but I will say it is not easy to watch them without being like, girl, like you fight so dirty, girl. And I think about that. Now, I wondered because I think the feedback that I'm trying to understand about that bubble is like it's a heavily Gen Z bubble. It's a heavily girl bubble. And young girls are feeling very vindicated in their representation for these types of situations. But I think it's obviously like in a way that I don't love. In the same way that I don't love the representation boys are feeling with Andrew Tate. Like, I'm not very happy about that. I'm not stoked that like our youth are excited that these are their representatives. Like, that's not very exciting to me. But then I wondered, okay, do they have good intent? Do they have good intent? Oh, like, big news, Rashad. I don't know if you heard, but I no longer have any brothers that are Andrew Tate fans.
Oh, really?
The times have changed.
That's okay. That's the way of putting it. Okay.
I love it. They said they're over the character. They're like, man, I'm so over this character, bro. I'm so over the character. Everyone's a character. I'm so sick of it. I just want someone honest. Like, I want someone honest and real. And I was like, yeah, like, where's the like real down to earth? Now they're Abba and Preach fans, so close enough. They're happy with them. I'm happy with that. That makes me happy. But it is one of those things where I think there is sort of like a character people get stuck in, and they play it, whether it's Ethan or Andrew Tate, and then it gets them into trouble, whether we like it or not. Ethan, I would feel very bad about myself if I accused somebody of something that they absolutely did not do. But I don't know why Ethan feels okay doing it, except is there, and tell me if this is true, is there a Gen Z bubble? Is there a reality in which that is essay?
I don't, because you always find that one person that's like, yeah, that is. But it's also dependent upon like how you feel about the person being accused. It's one of those stories where it's like it's not so black and white to where we can all agree. It's really dependent upon like, do you like Myron or do you dislike Myron? And if you dislike Myron, you're probably more likely to say, yeah, Myron's guilty. If you like Myron, you're gonna sit there and say he never did anything wrong. And if you're ambivalent about him, then you're kind of like, well, we'll see. I think that's like you said before. Generations aren't that different from one another in the sense that like I think people are really similar in terms of reasonability. It's like it's like that saying a person is smart but people are stupid. Like when you round people up into a group and you start sectioning them off by ideology, then you start to see people like stepping far away from reason and rationale and like common sense into the realm of like that ideology. I don't fuck with that, so I hate the guy and I'm gonna sit there and accuse him of whatever. Yeah, Ethan's an interesting player in the game because like no one else seems to be like do at his level. We've seen some people pull what he's pulled, but like at his level of success, no one else has pulled what he's pulled. And Fresh and Fit, I don't know why they accepted that call. I mean, they had their own smoke ready for him. They had their own
For
information. Like,
sure.
remember when he said this? And yeah, they had prepared for him on some level. But that stream was just. I took it as entertainment. Of course, there was the accusation aspect was definitely like, yo, like this is okay, this is too far. But I was just crying like the whole time.
Yeah.
Like it was entertainment for me.
Yeah, I think so. I think ultimately that probably was what it was. And I do
Mhm.
agree with you. I mean, I'm not a big fan of the crowd. I'm not even a big fan of like clicks on the internet where I'm like, anytime there's a group that gets together, then there becomes an expectation of behavior. And if you
Yeah.
cross that behavior in any way, now you're like one of them. And I'm like, oh, I just want to be one of me. And then we'll have
Yes.
interactions. And so I think that's what's so difficult. But when you're part of a clique and a community, it also feels really good. And you feel very vindicated and you feel very powerful because like now you're not alone. And so I
Mhm.
don't know, have you been following the recent the George Not Found controversy with Katie? Have you been following that at all or not really?
This is gonna sound racist, but like when I see like white people drama, I feel like I'm not gonna know what's going on. Like every
Sir?
time I see it, I'm like, if I click into this, I'm not going to know. Like when I watch academics, like I have like
Yeah.
years and years of like, oh, this rapper did this rapper did. So I have like I can like frame the whole thing
For sure, for
by
sure,
just
for
seeing
sure.
5 minutes and know what happened. When I see like white people YouTube drama, I'm lost. I don't know what's going
You know
on. I'm
what? I
lost.
think that's fair. You know what? I think that's fair. Even I was like, I don't know this Minecraft bubble, but like I'll try my best to figure out what's going on. I use a lot of context clues to figure it out, but like, yeah, okay, that's fine. It was just interesting because it was another Gen Z story where I was like, okay, like, like it's interesting the relationship people are having with these conversations. And again, like I'm all about hearing people out. I just want to know if they think that's universal, if everyone should be talking this way. What like okay, we wanted to talk about dating, right?
Yeah.
I have a question for you.
Okay.
How, when you're dating, how do you know that you're getting proper consent?
It's like nonverbal cues,
Mm-hmm.
and you kind of just gotta like you gotta kind of like wrap your ego up in like this like chain or like this like cage and just realize and recognize that like you're probably not gonna get you're not gonna like a person does shouldn't have to say no verbally for you to like know that it's not go time. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm always looking for that nonverbal no.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I get that, I just fall back. Even like approaching a woman, like I can tell when she's going for it or not. Like like hey, my name's Rashad. Thought you were cute. Nice to meet you. Blah 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 blah. You can tell within seconds if she's feeling you or not. So I
Mm.
automatically make like exit thing. Like I'll have like an exit sentence so she doesn't feel uncomfortable. Because I'm fine. I'm the one who initiated the interaction. But what if she's not comfortable? So if I'm feeling like there's no like reciprocation, I'll like say like, ah, it's no big deal, it's no issue, blah blah blah, it's all cool. Like I'll find ways to like make sure that both myself and the other person feel comfortable going into it and also exiting it. Because sometimes, like you can have unwanted interactions and the person doesn't know how to understand that the interaction is unwanted
Yeah.
and they don't know how to then retreat from it and exit in a way that makes both people comfortable.
Yeah, yeah. I in right when I asked the question, I was like, "Oh, my autists, my poor autists." Like figuring out nonverbal cues and shit, but to be honest with you, I really do think like a lot of people have an intuition. Like we're moving off intuition a lot of us, and we're moving off
Mhm.
vibes, and we're moving off even like I always tell this flirting story. I don't know. I don't think we've ever talked about it because we've only talked once now, right? So I don't think I told you. But there was this
Mhm.
infamous dating story or flirting story where I had a friend and he had an older brother.
Okay.
And I was like, kind of putting the moves on the older brother, okay? And I'm an adult, I'm a legal adult, okay? But we grew up with each other our whole lives. Like, we all grew up in the same neighborhood, blah, blah, blah. And, I come in and I flirt with him and da 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 da. And I'm heavily flirting. Like, it's obvious. Even his brother was like, bro, stop flirting with my brother. I was like, until you put a hard rule on that. And he eventually did. I was like, I ain't stopping because, like, we're having
Okay.
a lot of fun. So I'm talking to him. We're alone in the living room. It's going pretty good. I'm flirting. He's flirting. His next move, bro, will go down in history as one of the worst moves for me personally, but apparently has worked on other girls. He pulls a full on Trump and grabs my crotch. Just like, whoom. We haven't kissed. We haven't had an explicit conversation. We haven't done any of it. Just heavy flirting. grabs my crotch and like holds me. And I'm like, oh. And I looked at him, I was like, why was that the move? And he was like, I don't know. It's worked before. And I was like, it's not gonna work right now. And I don't mean to shoot you down, but like I this is not the move. And he was like, wait, really? I was like, yeah, it doesn't make any sense. So we sat down and we talked about it. And again, I've known this guy my whole life. Like, I know for some people they might be like, oh, but like, you need to relax, girl. Like, I was literally like thinking about this man naked. Everybody relax, okay? But the move gave me the biggest ick I have ever felt in my life. And I was like, oh, why did you do that? He genuinely says not only would it work on other people, but he figured since we were really heavily flirting, that would just be like a clear where he's at, like a clear indication. I'm not even going to fault him for making the move because obviously he respected my consent right away. He completely backed off. His brother was like, okay, you two, you're done. Both of you are done. And then we never engaged again. Okay. It was like a family friend. Till this day, I still like this man a lot. I see him frequently or enough, you know, when I'm in the States. It's fine. It's all good. But that was his move. And I want to know how many people are having those situations and they're not sure how to de-escalate or have the conversation. And then how many people are having like actual essay situations and how many people can't tell the difference between the two? Because to me, that was obviously not essay. That was just like failed flirting.
Yeah, that sounds like some shit you would do like that would require like you already having had like actual like sexual interactions with the person
You would
beforehand.
think.
Yeah, so it's like that's at best maybe if you're both like drunk and there's like a clear like atmosphere and vibe of like, yo, this is what's gonna happen, but even then you're still pushing it. I've always kept things like, I don't know, this is gonna sound mad like old school or chivalrous or some dumb shit. But like, like hand in the hair, maybe hand on the cheek or something like that. Or like, you know what I'm saying? Like, or like, yeah, just something just start small, start simple to communicate like, hey, like I want to communicate physical affection.
Yeah.
And I'm giving you the room to like you're kind of like you're taking the lead as a man, but you're kind of like you're taking the lead, but you can't really know where you're going without like her giving you that cue of like, okay, you can go this way, that way. So I don't know. It's like it's definitely I don't know because like as a man, I've never had okay, that's not true. Oh man, I don't know if I want to tell this story yet because I was saving this for a story time. I was groped last weekend, and I didn't think anything of it because I'm like, I'm a guy. Like she's like smaller than me. If I wanted to pick her up and throw her like a football, I could.
Sure.
But even still, with that experience, that was the first time it ever happened, and that was like last weekend. So, how many women out there have dealt with something like that way more often, way more frequent? I don't think I could give like a clarified.
Were you groped by a man or a woman?
Answer. I was a woman. No, if it was a dude, it would have been a bad situation.
Okay, but would you have fought the man, or at least indicated
it's
some level?
Yeah, it's go time.
Okay, but why that with a man and not that with a woman?
It's like when it's not the exact same thing, but it's like number one, I'm not gay, so like nothing wrong with being gay, but I'm not gay, and to me, it's also kind of like a from man to man, like unwanted physical interaction, be it sexual or not, oftentimes comes across as like, oh, you think I'm a bitch. Like you think you could just like play with me. So like now I gotta like remind you that's not the case.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Whereas with a woman, it's like this person's like, she was also drunk. So it's like this person's drunk.
Okay.
And it's like, plus you look crazy swinging on a woman anyway. Like it does. It's just there's so many different reasons. Yeah, like there's so many different reasons why I just would not treat it the exact same way. But I know in like today's day and age, that's considered like homophobic or like that's considered like maybe sexist,
like not
or something
to punch
like that.
Woman?
Well, like to be angry at a man groping you, but not a woman. Some people might find that like, oh, like, well, you're a homophobe.
No, I think it's a gendered issue more than a orientation issue, right? It's more of a like now we're equals, and then it's like if like a I don't know, like a weaker person came and groped me, I'd be like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, you remember when George Bush Sr. was groping people? I'm like, he's in a wheelchair. Slap his old person hand. He's like 90 years old. And everyone's like,
I
he's the
did not know about that.
bro. I would have slapped his hand and be like, what are you doing? You are an old
Right.
man. You are my grandpa's. What are you doing? But then people don't do that. Now, look, I'm very aggressive, and I'm very aggressive for a lot of reasons. Okay. When I was born this way, so I'm luckier than half the bitches in the world. Okay. But
Okay.
literally, I understand. No, I think that dynamic makes a lot of sense because it feels more like an equal playing field. And then if you hit a woman, it's kind of like you could have done a lot more before you hit her.
Yeah, and it's also like ironically the same people that would like criticize you for being mad at a man doing it, not a woman, would also
Yeah.
freak out on you for like freaking out on the woman. So it's like I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah,
okay,
yeah.
clearly society is insane. I'm not participating in the insanity. And it's also just the aspect of like someone who is a physical threat to me that I'm
Mhm.
not attracted to is making a sexual advance that is now touching against my consent.
Yeah.
Whereas someone who I'm kind of attracted to
Sure.
and is drunk and is a woman and is like tiny in
Yeah.
comparison to me. So it's like, yeah, but I haven't been in enough situations where my comfort has been violated by someone of the opposite sex for me to like give like a nuanced enough like I can give you like I know for a fact like as a man like I try to read as many nonverbal cues as possible because that's how most people do it. It's like
Mm.
nonverbal cues.
Mhm.
I know like it was like they had that like progressive victory thing and like they were talking about like guys approaching women too much and stuff
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that. And yeah, I mean like I don't know with some people like I'm aware of the fact that in some circles people have to be like it has to be verbal, you know.
Yeah. I think
So
that
yeah, I don't. Yeah.
yeah, go ahead, finish your thought.
No, I mean that was pretty much it. Yeah.
I think okay, so like obviously I was raised in like a conservative neighborhood and around conservative people, and my parents always taught me two things that I'm realizing I'm not hearing for a lot of people. Stranger danger, okay?
Mhm.
And if you are alone with a man, sex might happen.
Mhm.
Okay? Whether consensually or non-consensually. So, I was kind of taught like anytime you're alone with a man, just know that he might be thinking about sex. And I was like, no, that's not true. That's not how it works. And then I was hanging out with guys one on one. I was like, oh, damn. Okay. We all just horny every day, right? That's like what's happening.
Mhm.
Now, not all men, of course. Like I've met a lot of guys that's not how it went down. But if I'm talking about a normal heterosexual bubble, there seems to be a pattern of behavior in which when I am alone with a guy, there's always that like, we gonna do this? And I'm like, oh. Now when I realized that, I did reform how I socialized with men, meaning that if I in any way was into him, I would let that be known. And then I would say, it's not that I'm opposed to being intimate, but if we're going to be intimate, here are my requirements, like STI testing and condoms and all these other things. Because first of all, I'm super sex positive. So you're not going to shame me for like asking people for sex. But
Mhm.
because I know that, I also surprise a lot of men and they're like, oh, like you're just asking ahead of time. I was like, well, I just don't want to end up at your place. And then we're flirting and then it's slow. And then all of a sudden I didn't prepare and I didn't get tested and I didn't get the right birth control. And like, well, now we can't have sex,
Yeah.
because I didn't prepare. So I would rather just
Mhm.
come out with it. And like a lot of men are relieved when I do that for sure. Because they're like, okay,
Mhm.
good. Now I don't have to guess if she's into me. She's just, and now there's no games. The dilemma with that method is one, I don't mind going straight to the good stuff. I don't need the buildup. Two, I think the buildup starts the moment like there's any kind of flirting, anyways.
Mhm.
And three, it's for my safety because I learned a
Right.
lot of lessons the hard way growing up about like not doing that. And
Mhm.
when I wasn't doing that, I got into a lot more trouble, a lot of miscommunication, a lot of people like very confused about signals and throwing signs up and people assuming. So I think I do it for the safety of myself and my community. I think as a good community member, I want to be explicit and it has to start with me.
Mhm.
And that includes the rejection. The moment, like,
Yeah.
I remember this guy hit me up. He hit me up out of nowhere. We had had a date together at one point. He hit me up out of nowhere and he's like, hey, I really miss you. And I was like, I'm dating someone. I'm busy. And he was like, who says I hit you up to say like that? It wasn't even sexual. And I was like, I miss you out of the blue, bro. Don't fuck with me. And he was like, okay, but like also you could have just like given me a moment. I was like, nah, I know what an I miss you text is. I'm not that autistic. Like I know what it is. And again, it's like, I
Uh,
know that
it depends though, because sometimes a person could really, really like just like Brittany that bad and like actually. You
Girl,
doubt
this
that?
man hadn't hit me up in so long. Please.
Okay, yeah. I mean, like if it's been like more than like 3 months or something, like if it's been like up to 6 to 12, yeah, like you're bullshitting.
Longer, like almost a year.
Oh yeah, yeah. Never mind.
Like,
Yeah, never.
bro, come on, out of the
Yeah,
blue,
no.
bro.
Yeah, no.
Girl, I miss you.
Yeah,
Girl, sit down, girl. Anyways, it's fine. But
yeah.
like, it's fine. But like, obviously, I just went instead of doing the whole like, oh, I miss you too. What's up? Or
Mhm,
oh my god, I just went straight to I'm seeing someone right now, so I can't. And he was like, and again, that bluntness is, I think, a part
mhm.
of my personality that goes, let's just skip the middle and go straight to, like, I
That's
already know what
rare.
this is, but it isn't what
That's
people
rare.
want. Rashad, people want the buildup. They want the slow texts. They want the I think he's into me,
Mhm,
girls. He's asking me over. They want the game, and that's fine. I'm not even shitting on it, but I'm saying when those people hang out together, sometimes there's a miscommunication, and then all of a sudden we have people
mhm.
making accusations. And then
Yeah.
there's actual harm being done at a rampant degree everyone is ignoring because everyone's focused on these like false accusations.
Mhm.
So obviously, hello, if everyone's paying attention to Ethan, we're ignoring all of that space, time, and resource from people who are actual victims. Tell me that's not frustrating.
Something tells me people don't really put any stock in Ethan's accusation. Like, I
That's
feel
a good
like
point,
that
I
whole
guess.
like thing. Honestly, I think because it would have been a much bigger storm than it. Like, honestly, I don't think anyone's really paying it any mind as much mind as Ethan might have hoped people would have. I think it's like a.
Oh.
I think it's like a. I think it's like a little thorn in Myron's side of like, remember when I put this on you? But I think most people can kind of tell like this is just Ethan and Fresh and Fit playing mind games. Like, I mean, that's at least how I felt. Like sometimes you can like watch a video and you can feel like the temperature around it. Like you can kind of
Mm.
like tell how the interwebs is feeling about this particular thing.
Mm-mm.
I didn't really get that from that video. I kind of got the energy of, oh, Fresh and Fit and the H3 camp are beefing. Let's watch this more so than, yo, Myron did. You know, because that was like a while ago. That accusation that it was like 2 years ago or a year and a half
Yeah,
ago.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. A long time ago already.
yeah, and it didn't really do any damage to
That's
Fresh.
a
I
good
mean,
point.
Myron's done worse.
Wait, that's a great point. I never thought about it that way, but I think you're right that these accusations haven't really stuck. Why is
Hmm.
Ethan doing that? What a weird thing to decide to do. But I do think it confuses part of the audience, mostly the chronically online girlies, and I want to support them the most. Obviously, my audience is mostly women, and I want to give them
Hmm.
tools to be preventative. What tools are men getting? I know we wanted to talk about like dating and gurus and all these role models. What tools are
Hmm.
boys using to know how to date and treat girls right? Like, what are some of the tools that Gen Z is utilizing? Are boys being mean to
Uh,
girls? Your face tells me like they don't have any, or what's up?
yeah, there's none in the there's none.
Okay, what do
There's a
they
lot of people
need?
teaching. There's a lot of people teaching us how to be attractive to women, but it's like someone put it really well. I think academics put it really well. He said, "The red pill teaches you how to get in the door, but it doesn't teach you how to actually be a boyfriend or to be a husband.
Mm.
Like it's like okay, make money, be fit, make friends, have a good social media page, get status, but it's like okay, like let's say you get all of those things. How do you maintain a relationship?
Yeah.
How do you interact? Because like honestly, like ironically enough, in spite of all the allegations made against Tate, one thing I find really interesting about Tate, in contrast to people like Myron and Sneeko, is Tate acts like a guy who would never do the shit he's accused of when he's talking to women. Like in spite of being the
Mm.
most like, in spite of him being famous for saying crazy shit about women, if you watch him on these panels, he's funny, he's nice, he's very like when he's trying to convince women of what he thinks, he's not overbearing or like you're an idiot or you're like he's very very smooth with it. In contrast to someone like Myron or Sneeko, where it's like insult after insult after insult after insult. Tate is oddly enough really like he's I hate the fucking word riz. Um it's he has that I don't and not, it's not even gift of gab. He's just very he gets it. Like he gets it.
Hmm.
And I feel like that's a part of the red pill that's not verbalized enough. Now I picked it up. I'm watching it and I'm like this motherfucker's really good at this shit. Like he's like in spite of everyone saying he hates women so much, which I mean I'm not going to contest the crazy shit he said. He's very very good at interacting with them in a way that makes them feel like calm, relaxed, blah blah blah. And I picked up on it, and I tried to learn from that. Like, okay, like what am I doing? Like when I interact with women, am I like that, or am I like Myron or Sneeko? And granted, Myron's that the moderator, so he has to be an asshole.
Sure.
But like when I look at how like Sneeko is, or like the producer Chris, like they're much more aggressive, they're much more abrasive, and they're a lot less successful at convincing the women of what they think. Whereas a guy like Tate walks in, all these accusations, all these charges, and he's extremely convincing. So,
Mm-hmm.
long story short, no, there is no like 10 commandments for men of like how to interact with women successfully and be nice and kind and be a
Sure.
boyfriend. But there is kind of like a, if you're smart enough to see it, you could definitely read through watching Tate. He's very good at that.
Could you tell me the difference between sort of like the Tate kind of character or like the Myron kind of person or even academics compared to maybe like the suburban dad? Like, are there Gen Z boys who want to
Mm.
be the suburban dad? I meet them myself, but I'm not sure if you are talking to people who are like, yeah, dude, I just want like a wife and kids and a picket fence and a dog.
That's most guys that I know. I'm the only one that's lost their mind. I'd say most guys for sure want something normal,
Yeah.
but like a lot of guys are finding that they can't even get a woman to say yes to a date. So they're kind of like, okay, boyfriend, husband shit. I'll get to that later. How do I be attractive enough to even get laid? Right? Because it's like there are situations where you can be boyfriend material, and she'll say, I'm bringing God into my life right now. I'm not really interested in sex, but she's definitely having sex with someone else. But it's because you're boyfriend and husband material, but you don't have like any sex appeal, you have no like game, you don't have any of that other shit, so you're kind of like sitting in this box. Like when she's done like living the life, she'll come pick you up out of it, and that's like almost every dude's nightmare. So
Interesting.
they're kind of like trying to figure out, okay, how do I be attractive first so she actually likes me,
Yeah.
then I can be this husband boyfriend thing. The problem is the red pill doesn't even teach that. So
Mm.
like you're not aware of like how to actually be, and I don't even fully know yet. Like I'm still learning. Like I don't even fucking fully know. Like I'm 23. So but yeah, there is no like Bible. And as you asked the difference between guys like Tate and the rest, I mean like I think that Tate is a lot less. I think he's a lot less angry, maybe, or like a lot. I think he's a lot more. The vibe I get from him, he's a lot less angry at women.
He doesn't
He's
seem
a lot.
bitter.
He does not seem bitter at all. He
No.
seems very content with both what he's doing and himself. He seems really just he seems unbothered, generally speaking. Like if you see the way he reacts to like insults on stream, he won't even give a reaction. Like he seems really content with himself. And when I contrast that to a guy like Sneeko, who's also entertaining, also successful, but when he's on those streams, he's a lot more abrasive, a lot more confrontational with the women. Whereas Tate seems to be able to accomplish what guys like Myron and Sneeko are trying to do with, the arguing and the insults. He seems to be really, really capable of doing it without lobbing those. And I guess like the closest is going to be a wild shot. Zerka. Zerka is probably as close to, and he's wild, but it's that humor, it's that understanding of like not being too factoidish and like too logical. Because when you're talking to women, they're very social, so like they don't want to hear all these like little factoids. Just talk to them normal. You know what I mean? Like most people. So it's like I don't know. Tate does seem, in spite of all the allegations and the shit, he does seem to be a lot more acclimated to interacting with women, which I don't know if young men are taking that away from Tate. I don't know if they're absorbing that because he's not
Yeah.
explaining that part. He's kind of just sitting there saying, get rich, get ripped, get bitches, get money, get fame, the end.
Yeah.
You know?
That's interesting. Myron said something that stood out to me in the conversation with the H3. And I wonder what you thought about it. He said, like, men are the gatekeepers of marriage and women are the gatekeepers of sex. And I grew up in a different bubble. In the bubble I grew up in, men are the gatekeepers of sex and women are the gatekeepers of marriage. Like, women are the marriage choosers. Men have to be good enough mates for women to marry them. And, like, so that was, like, a really interesting bubble difference to me. Where I was like, oh, that's unique. What do you think about that?
I'm going to say something crazy. I think women are the gatekeepers of both.
Damn, son.
like,
I mean,
yeah, I mean, I mean, if you're Drake, like, obviously, like, this is not a factor for you, but if you're like
yeah.
a normal guy, like, If you're a normal guy who's not like some super successful like celebrity or some shit or some like alpha chad,
Yeah, yeah.
to get a relationship or sex, that is not in your hands. You are starting from literally level one, and you're trying to get that's like level two, and that's hard. Level three is even harder. Level four,
Mm.
like you have no option here. You show up, you make a hey, I thought you were cute. I'm opening myself up to you now. Like you have no say. So I think it's like a fantasy of like, yeah, men are the ones that guard relationships. So which men? Like which guys are we talking
Interesting.
about? So for me, like in my experience when I was like 20, 21, I was a lot more out of shape. I didn't really have my shit together, and I noticed that it was so much harder to like get either of these things.
Mm.
So like if you're the average guy, like marriage and sex are not in your hands like at all. Like you're very much
Interesting.
like trying to get both.
I've been really thinking about like what is this mythical average man? And I started to think
Mhm.
about the conversation we had initially, that first one, and I started to think about my little subculture where everybody in my little like sex positive BDSM bubble was like, a lot of them weren't like the greatest looking people in terms of aesthetic, but were very, very sweet
Okay.
and loving, and they got fucking laid, bro. And we had a great time. And as I was sitting there observing, like, oh yeah, like none of these people are conventional. And when anyone slightly conventional came into the dungeon, girl, you better bet everybody hit on them. Because they were like tens at the dungeon, maybe like seven in real life. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And there's something about that where I'm like, oh, like when I think average, I hate to say this out loud, so forgive me, everybody listening. When I think average person, I just think of like a 4 or 5 who has an average job, average looks, average everything, literally. And I'm like, yeah, all those people are
Mhm.
everywhere and they're getting laid. But I'm not thinking of my BDSM people as not average. But I realize, like, are they not average to people? Are they considered not average because of their lifestyle?
I think so like to address your like that BDSM dungeon thing, like that sounds so like rare. Like that sounds like such a very small like thing to be a part of that like I think most people yeah, I guess like the average person walking in, but then again, yo, the bar has to be in hell for the average person to walk in and be a 10. I'm not gonna lie. Maybe the bar
Mm-mm.
was I don't know. I don't want to judge your group. I don't want to start making judgments,
Yeah.
but it's also an age thing. Like when you're an average guy, you're probably gonna get married when you're like 27, 28, 29. But those first few years when you're 18, 19,
Sure.
20, 21, 23, oh yeah, it's like hell on earth. You're not getting laid, you don't have a girl. Like you're kind of invisible because women don't have the shackles of like patriarchy on them anymore. Like they don't have to be forced to marry some bum because he's got a paycheck, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
now it's like that guy's 6'3", he's handsome, he's got, he's nice physique, whatever, he's popular. That's who I'm going for. Whereas the guy that's probably going to be the husband, he's probably not as tall, not as handsome, not as good looking, blah blah blah. When people are young, they're a lot more likely to give into like vice and like,
Sure.
like desires and shit like that. So yeah, like I feel like it's also an age thing where a lot of young people are attracted, young men are attracted to the red pill because you're in the most like Darwinist like spot of like your life where it's like if you don't make the cut, you're not getting anything. Like you're like it's over for you for like a good few years.
Mhm.
Then when you hit those like late 20s, early 30s, people want to settle down and you probably are going to start to get married and shit, but I think like the average guy probably like not really tall, not pretty, not really handsome, not really fit and in shape, no real strong like popularity or presence on social media. Like, I mean, I believe average guys when they say they're struggling. I've struggled in dating. Like, it does seem to be like a phenomenon right now, but I think it's probably a young people thing.
Mm. It's interesting. If I just observe my brothers, because they're so different, they all look very different. They all have different tropes. They all belong to very different tropes. And I look at which
Okay.
brothers were like the most successful right out the gate. Obviously, the tallest ones. I think that's pretty
Hmm.
like, and the ones who didn't go
Yeah.
bald as fast.
Hmm.
And that alone got them much further than the other brothers that were like maybe a little bit shorter, maybe like, balding quicker, which is interesting. And I think about those very
Hmm.
superficial things. But then if I really looked into who's having a successful relationship, only one, well, two of my brothers are married. And I would say one of them
Hmm.
has a successful relationship. I said what I said. And when I look at that relationship, okay,
Okay.
When I look at that relationship, and I really love his relationship, and his relationship is the one I modeled my courting style after to meet my husband.
Mhm.
It's very serious, and he was the picker and the holder of the sex and of the marriage, and his, as it was his wife, to be fair. But he, in his dating history, was always like interviewing women and being like, no, next, no, next.
Mhm.
But to be fair, he's literally like over 6 feet. He makes like 150K a year. He's really
Okay,
good
that makes
looking. He's got
sense.
a six pack.
Yeah,
Like, you know what I'm
that
saying? And
makes
he's been
sense.
out of high school, had like 20K in the bank saved because he worked jobs. Like, he just hustled all through high school. This kid knew at like 10 years old, he's like, I'm going to be a father and I'm going to be the best father and I'm going to be better than all of you. And then he just did it. And now they're about to have 5 kids, bro. 5. So, like, killed it, right? He's the
Yeah.
exception to me. He's not the average. Nobody works as hard as that brother. Like, he works harder. He works now 12-hour days on average. Sundays
Mhm.
off, of course, for the Lord. So, like, this man's
Okay.
consistent, bro. But he is an exception even amongst our family. Every sibling, if you ask them who's your favorite, him.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
He's everyone's favorite. Everybody loves him because he's a good person, though. Ultimately, the reason they love my brother, I call him my farm brother, is because he's a very good person. He's honest. He's fair. He doesn't give a fuck if you're different from him. He will judge you fairly. I go to him for advice on my bullshit lifestyle that he thinks is so gross, but he will be very fair about it. My like
Mhm.
liberal lifestyle, he's like, but he's so fair. So when I see these men who are struggling in dating, I want to ask them if one, they're ready to be married, and two, if they're even good people.
I don't think that's not even a part of the conversation when we start talking about red pill and young men. Like,
Okay, fair.
are you ready to be a good husband? Like, no one's even thinking of that. Like I don't know. Maybe it's a person by because like it's rare to find a young guy that's young and's like I'm gonna be married and I'm gonna
For
be a
sure.
dad and I'm gonna and there's also like the existential crisis that hits you when you're like in your early 20s and shit's not really making sense. Like when you're like 20 something and dating isn't necessarily working the way you thought it was going to work when you were growing up. So then you have this like wave of like panic that hits you where you're like, yo, fuck all that husband shit, fuck all that marriage shit. I'm going to be a hoe. Like I'm going to go
Yeah.
out there and I'm going to live life because frankly, I've been missing out. Like I think average young men are kind of like seeing, especially in this era of social media, like the FOMO era where you
Yeah.
you feel like you're missing out on all this shit. It's a perfect concoction of like freak out where it's like, okay, I don't have this money, I don't have these chicks, I don't have this, I don't have that, and I'm 20 something years old and I'm lonely, nothing's going my way. And I think that when you're having that panic, you kind of bite into whatever's closest to you that's giving you the advice you think you need.
Yeah.
So I think that like as it pertains to like the left, like liberal blue pill kind of advice for men, it's kind of like they'll say like just be nice and be kind, kind of like your brother. Like he's a nice, kind guy. He's motivated to be a father, is interested in being a father.
Mm-hmm.
They
Mm-hmm.
kind of give men that, and they don't realize most of these guys aren't assholes, and a lot of them probably do want to be fathers. The problem is being nice isn't really like really cutting it. So it's like, okay, like what do I do besides be nice? Because I've been nice to women before. Every guy's been nice to a woman. Like, when you like someone, you're probably gonna be, unless you're like a lunatic, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I've been nice. I probably, had the daydreams about like some like picket fence and 2-story home and kids. I've had all of that. And it's still not working. Like, what the fuck am I doing? And then the red pill comes along and it's like, you're fat, you're ugly, you dress
Mm.
horribly, your wardrobe is fucked up, you smell, you have no money, you have like 20 followers on the gram, you suck in every way. Like, if you even want a chance at being a option,
Mm.
get all this shit figured out first. And like you add in the fact that these guys are so young, they completely forget about the husband, father, boyfriend shit. And I'm young too. I'm 23, so I'm really
Yeah.
speaking from experience here.
Well, I'm slipping over to chat slightly, and I will see like the men in the audience seem to agree with your assessment about that lived experience. And so I'm,
Hmm.
I'm curious about that like overlap where I'm like, okay, so there are people that feel like you are speaking facts, you are representing,
Hmm.
you are like, oh my gosh, this is so relatable. I guess like in my mind, separate from the world's expectations, I want to know the single motivators like in these people's lives, like when they think about their biggest priority, like what is the number one priority of like a young man, honestly, like outside of what the world keeps telling him it should be, like what do you think internally they are prioritizing?
For the average guy, I think the average guy wants a wife and a family and kids and just like a normal legacy. Like I think
Yeah.
that's the average guy wants. Like come on, like you know what I mean? Like I think Alba and Sneeko were having this funny conversation where like Sneeko was like, I want like 20 hoes and 20 bitches. And I think a lot of these young dudes don't realize like you're not Andrew Tate.
Yeah.
He's 30 something years old and is still committed to this whole 20 bitches mentality.
Mm.
Y'all aren't even 25. Stop thinking that you're him. You're not him. To be 35 and still want to live like that, you have to be a very unique and like just different like kind of person.
Yeah.
But if you're like in your like early to mid 20s or like really like you're like 18, 19, you don't want 10 hoes cuz when you meet that one chick that really like you fall like heads like, you're not going to want anybody else with her. You're going to be like head over heels. So I think the average guy just wants something normal. Me on the other hand, like I've completely lost my mind, but for the normal humans out there, I'd
Yeah.
say like most young guys want something normal.
So, did you see on the podcast like Myron and Walter's girlfriends, or like what any of them look like, or the kinds of women? Do
Like
you know?
IG models?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Those girls. Okay. Do you think
Yeah.
those girls are attractive? Are you into that category of girl?
I'm gonna keep it 1,000 with you. They're attractive, but like I would never like be like in a committed relationship with an IG model. No.
Okay, why not?
No. It's too much. I feel like people like them have like I feel like they can't be satisfied. And maybe I'm just judging.
Mm.
I think maybe it's projection because like in a way like I'm pursuing a lot of shit too. So like I can't be with someone who also wants the world because like what if I draw my limit further like sooner than you do? What if I'm like okay, whew, like I'm making 100,000 a year, we're going on vacation, this is it. But you want Birkin bags and shit, you gotta go. You know what I mean? Like you gotta go. Like I'm not dropping 20 racks on a Birkin. Um, I just like I want someone who's simple, probably nerdy, like you know, like I don't want some like Instagram bad bitch because like I just don't see a long term like I just don't see it happening, especially if they're like overly invested in their looks like a lot and
Sure.
constantly need to post shit a lot. That kind of tells me that you probably want to enjoy this for as long as you can, probably like be on boats, yachts, like which is fine. Like I'm not judging it. I just know
Mhm.
like I can't be fulfilled by that.
Well, I mean, I would. So in my bubble, we'd call that materialistic women, and we
Yeah.
would say don't date materialistic men or women. Because
Mm.
I grew up in a religious bubble. And like, how many times has Jesus got to talk about rich people getting into heaven for people to realize, like, if you focus your
Yeah.
dedication on materialism, like, where's the humility in that? So
Mhm.
I agree with that. Like, obviously, even though I'm on Instagram and even though I'm on OF, I don't consider myself that category of woman. It's like totally different. Like, I look at them and I'm like, oh, what an interesting life you have. I thought
Mhm.
about going in that direction at one point in my life. I was like, should I be an anime big titty girl? Should I get plastic surgery and like do that for my living? Because I thought about it. I was like, I could do this for a living.
Okay.
But I decided on this instead, right? Because I was like, what could I keep up with every day? Girl, being cute every day is hard.
Mm.
I'm not doing
Mm.
that. But it is hard, I think, because it is about trends and materialism. And it's just like, it's too much for me. But it is a
Yeah.
lifestyle. It is a lifestyle that's different. So I look at them and I'm like, I don't like. So I personally am not attracted to anyone who shows up on Fresh and Fit. I think they're all very, like, I'm sure nice-ish, but like I'm just not only am I not physically attracted to any of them, like their energy makes me like never want to date again. All of them, men, women. I'm just like, oh, why? Even
Mm.
when I saw Abba go on Fresh and Fit, I'm like, why are you there? Why are you there?
Mm.
Like, don't go there.
Okay.
And so I was kind of happy when he burned the bridge. I was like, okay, good. My taste in people is like, it's okay, we good. Like, because like I just because there's like a wholesomeness, that I look for in people. And so I don't see
Mhm.
that on the Fresh and Fit bubble. I don't see a wholesomeness. I don't see gratitude.
Yeah.
I don't see someone growing old with somebody and having grandkids who are going to look up to you and think highly of you. I don't see people who are going to
Mhm.
make like food for their kids or clean up your child's vomit or understand your child is going to blow a diaper at a McDonald's and you're going to have to clean that. Like, I don't see those women
Mm.
being what I would call like mother material. So obviously,
That's one of the things that I also feel when I'm watching a lot of IG models. I'm like, I can't imagine this person holding my child correctly. Like I kind of see them like holding
oh,
them upside down or like holding them like I don't really like I can't see them like feeding my kid when they're throwing a tantrum. Like I just can't like it's just not I just can't see it.
yes.
You know, it's like one of the things a lot of young men have to keep in mind when they're watching. Fresh and Fit is these chicks are not normal. They're Miami
Mm,
thoughts. And when you're talking to Miami thoughts every day, you're going to hear some wild shit.
I agree.
Yes, they want Birkins. Yes, they want AMGs. Yes, they want all this stuff, but the average chick is not like that. So
Right.
it's like young men are having their perception far too skewed by chicks that they probably won't even want to marry. And it's like you got to be able to like it's funny that you talk about this all the time. You got to be able to see bubbles. You have to
Yeah.
be able to know when you're looking at a space you don't want to be a part of, you're not built for.
Mm,
Like if I could tell most red pill young guys viewing that shit like, look, you're not built for half of this shit. I'm not.
literally.
I can even admit I'm not built for the IG models.
Mm-mm.
I'm not built for this shit. I'm scared, frankly. I'm scared of these chicks. Like, I'm not built for that lifestyle. And I think you're so right about that. It's a very good point you made.
Yeah, well, I think people mistake, and I, I always joke like I've always had a trope of a guy I liked, and I've always dated that guy. And same with girls, I have a specific trope of girls that I'm into, and I've always dated that trope. And I've always found
Mhm.
like I always joke like the toxic versions of them. I was like, where's the healthy version of my trope? Oh, and then I married him, so I'm like really excited about it because everyone would tell me like, oh, it's the kind of guy you're dating. I was like, no, it's not the
Mm.
kind of guy, it's the toxic version, but it's the right trope. I want a gamer who watches anime and is chill and likes philosophy. And I know that because like that hobby is
Mm.
my I don't want to be a part of that hobby. I like my hobby and I like my life that is like all in
Okay.
like I have 3 monitors. I need somebody who wants 3 monitors in their life, you
Yeah.
know? And that's a gamer. So I was like, who is the gamer I'm going to end up with? It's not the engineer. I'm
Yeah.
not very into engineer types. Also could have three
Mhm.
monitors. My dad has 6. Not a
Yeah.
gamer, but an engineer, not my bubble. And I'm like, okay, which bubble am I going to date? I always got the bubble correctly, but never the right version because there's all these different types. So I
Uh-huh.
realized, like, okay, what category makes my person? And they have these certain traits. Same with girls. I love fake nails on a girl, but I could never date a girl who always had fake nails, who always had to have her makeup on. Even when I was dating women, I was like, how often do you wear makeup? She's like, every day, don't leave the house without it. Not dating her. Because I
Interesting.
don't date women who need to have makeup on to leave the house.
Okay.
Because I don't have time to wait for you to get ready. I will
Oh,
roll
okay.
out of bed,
Okay.
brush my teeth, and leave the house, girl. I don't care if I have makeup on. So I need somebody in my life who has the same lifestyle as me.
Yeah.
I'm looking for lifestyle. I want us to have the same lifestyle.
That's interesting. So you said so like you have like this archetype that you're like into. Okay. So like how long so you only found one person that was like a healthy version of what you were looking for? Like why do you think that was so hard to find?
Okay, 2 reasons. One, during the most active dating period of my life, I was toxic.
Okay.
So like what healthy person was going to date me, girl?
Okay.
So let's be introspective here. I was absolutely toxic enough to only attract that level of healthy or toxic, and it was toxic. So that was on me. And then 2, I just didn't know myself enough or my values until I turned about 30. When I turned 30,
Mm.
I like put my foot down and I was like, okay, absolutely no second chances, and absolutely these are my values and they're not going to get crossed. These are my like code of honor. This is my principle. I'm living by this principle, okay? I'm gonna have
Okay.
principles, and I'm gonna form them as a non-religious person, and then I'm gonna stick to them no
Okay.
matter the temptation because I do think they are objectively the right thing for me, for Brittany.
Okay.
And then I took 3 years off of dating, and then third year into that hiatus, I guess I ran into my now husband, and we started
Hmm.
dating and courting. And when I went into it, I was very serious about it.
Yeah.
So he was already the right trope. We were in the right circles. He already had the right hobbies. The conversation was fire. Like it was so good. Right away, I was like, I don't know who this is, but he might be my next best friend. And he turned
Okay.
out to be my perfect best friend. And I was like, great. But
Mhm.
I had been healthy enough. And at the time I had dated enough, like first dates, even during the healthy period of my life, to like write people off right away. No second dates, unless I was
Okay.
like really, really sure. And it was down to values. What was your question?
It was like you're on
Archetype,
point.
trope.
It was like you're finding the healthy version of your
Mm.
archetype.
And then the
You're
archetype,
you're on
I'm
point.
not fucking with you. Every boy that I've basically been super into, and I focused on boys a lot because as much as I was dating girls during COVID, bro, the dating pool for an older girl millennial who is going to date a queer girl who has to understand like she's not going to have contact with my family It's very hard to find.
Okay.
Okay. So boys were easier, but I was dating both. And then the
Mhm.
first boy who came into my life, like during COVID, he was the first one who fit all of the right tropes and on resume was exactly had the same lifestyle as me, the same goals as me, the same values,
Mhm.
the big things that mattered. And we both felt the same about each other. It was mutual. It was symbiosis. Like we had symbiosis. We were symbiotic. So it
Okay.
wasn't like I liked him more than he liked me or he likes me more than it was like, hey, you. I know we've only talked like once or twice, but you feel that? And I was like, bro, I hear that. I think it. Like we're having a moment. And then we went further into that relationship. But prior to
Mm.
that, there were people in my DMs. I was flirting with people, but I knew they weren't the one. I was like, you have the right things. You're nerdy, you like anime, you play D&D. It almost sounds right, but
Mhm.
something's off. And then he showed up. I was like, you like anime, you're nerdy, you play D&D. And I was like, but we're the same in terms of values, the same lifestyle, the same outlook, the same hope for our life. That's what it
Okay.
was. Like it's about finding the right trope and then finding the right life. Like, look, I live in Croatia. I moved away from my
Mhm.
mom and dad. I moved away from my siblings. Like that alone would have alienated me from so many other men who were like family men. Oh, I want to live next to my mom and dad. I want to die next to my parents. I love my parents, but I don't want to die next to them.
Okay.
We do better. We would fight. My mom even says it. She goes, distance makes the heart go fonder. I love you. And I'm like, I know. We do better a little further apart.
Okay.
Okay. But we talk every day on the phone. But like, you know what I'm saying? But if I married a
Yeah.
man who was like, I want to live next to my mom and dad, I'd be like, oh, that means your life is dictated by your parents. Him and our life is dictated by us. Even his parents, they're very independent themselves and they always like they'll come and visit us. And that's really
Mhm.
nice. But they'll look at us and they're like, okay, one, you guys are very in love. And I was like, thank you. And then two, they're like, it's nice. You guys are like, you're really just like happy and you're doing your own thing, right? I was like, we're super happy. We're doing everything we want to do. We're good. I know everyone else is like, okay, like you guys are kind of isolated. I was like, we're chilling. But we'll see. We see people. It's just like we're very hermetic in the same way. Does
Let
that
me
make
challenge you
sense?
on something.
Tell me, tell me,
It
tell
doesn't
me.
make sense. So you said something interesting. You said if someone wants to die next to their parents, you feel like they're being a little bit too influenced by their parents. I feel like that's kind of most people, maybe throughout history, probably would want to die maybe close to where their at least their family. Like
Yeah, yeah,
if
yeah.
not their parents, do you think that maybe like your past with your parents might be the reason why you're not so like hyped up or like you feel the need to stay in that spot?
Well, for sure. Look, the dream would be to own a cul-de-sac with all my siblings and my parents.
Okay.
Even in COVID, my brother and I, like, we should buy these houses next door to each other. That'd be so funny. And then we were all joking
Mhm.
about it. But as a family, one, we're all very opinionated. We're all very independent. And we as a family have discussed this. My mom called me the other day. She goes, do you want to move next to your brother with me? And I was like, no. You already know what will happen. And she goes, no, you're right. You're right. You should stay far away, but you should come visit more. And I was like, obviously. And even my brother, he's like, you can live next to me, dude, but we're going to have fights over how you raise your kids. I was like, obviously. Because like we love each other, but I'm gonna raise
Mhm.
my kids like gender neutral. I'm not gonna have kids, but if I raise my kids, they'd be like pro LGBT and gender neutral, and then their kids would come over, and then they'd all have to talk, and then it would cause conversation. My brother moved to a Catholic neighborhood with Catholic people.
Okay.
My other brother, who's super Catholic, only has Catholic friends. He has no secular friends.
Okay.
My parents, their friends are their cousins who are, say it with me, Catholic.
Okay.
So they love their life so much. If I move next door to them, it's kind of like holding up like two men kissing on my front door and being like, "Hi, mom and dad." It's kind of fucked
Okay.
up.
No, it's like it's the circumstances. You're aware of the circumstances and you've
Yeah.
responded to them in an adult way.
I want to give people like respect and boundaries. And I want to say, I really love my life. Like, my brother is so okay. Do you know those Marilyn Monroe pinup photos like people have in their houses?
Yeah.
Like, she'll be tatted up or she'll be playing pool. My sister used to have those posters on her in her house. And when my brother came over, he would be like, "Can you take those down before I come in your house?" When I say my family's religious, bro, okay?
Ah, like that.
When I say like there are limitations to how we can function as people, when I go, this is too slutty for my parents.
Okay.
I have to cover up. Like
Okay.
I love my family. They're dope. They're fun. They'll feed you barbecue and beer, and they'll make sure you're so happy when you leave. But as their kids, we get along better when we visit more than when we live next door to each other. So yes, do I think it
Okay,
would
now
be
that makes total
awesome? Do
sense.
I think it would be awesome to live near my parents? 100%.
Hmm. Okay.
But I'd rather not fight with my parents every day because we're neighbors.
Okay, that makes total sense to me now because I was
Yeah.
like, huh, like
No, I think
because
it's
your
dope.
explanation, yeah.
I think it's dope, but it's not the vibe for anybody.
No, I respect it. I get it. I was just curious because I'm like, okay, like I want to understand that better because I'm like, I would want to be close to family. So like, what might make someone say, be good on that?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know what I'm
yeah.
saying? I was
I
just
love
curious.
my family. They're my
Mm.
favorite people. They're my inner circle. I love them so much. We text and talk every day, but it's like, okay, you ever had this happen? Maybe you haven't. I am terrified of running into my mom at the store because of how I dress.
That's some different shit. I'm just gonna be
Okay?
like, that is
Like
okay.
that's what I'm saying. Like I my in-laws will come over and I'll be like in clothes. They're very liberal. Like they're so liberal. Like I don't even think about what I'm
Mhm.
wearing. I'll be like in a sports bra and like workout outfit because I'll be like doing my
Okay.
weight stuff. They'll come in. I'm like, oh hey, what's up? I don't even think about it. But if that was my mom and dad coming over, I'd be like, sweater, sweater, give me a sweater because like they would, they're just very like modesty is key.
Okay.
Modesty is sexy. Modesty is beautiful. Modesty gives praise to God, which is beautiful, bro. I love that with no hate to them. So it just makes it better that I don't have to worry about running into my parents at the store.
That's an interesting background. I could not, I cannot. The most I've ever had to deal with is like, you can't eat that. You shouldn't
Yeah.
eat like pork or like shellfish or some shit, which like was annoying, but like never that far. So I can only
Hmm.
slightly relate to you in the sense of like being told I can't eat a certain piece of food. And,
Sure.
I don't take it seriously because I'm like, look, all animals are disgusting. Watch a chicken walk around. It's eating nothing but feces. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. But yeah, that was still something I wanted to, get to know about a little bit more. You mentioned one thing you brought up that I think is so important for, I guess, like this new wave of like this young men, like lonely young men, is like knowing like what you want
Yeah.
in a partner. Like that, even like archetypes, like just knowing like, okay, like sure the Instagram baddie is a baddie, but like are you actually gonna be with that person long term? But
Yeah.
ironically enough, and this might be a testy take, so I want to shoot it off. I kind of didn't find out until I made myself attractive enough to kind of like be good enough to date. And then I was able to figure out like, wait, hold on a second. No, 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 no. That subculture not for me. Like I could fit in, like I can blend into any space, but like I can't see I don't want to blend into that space. I don't mind visiting, but I don't want to be there for that long or like be around for
Hmm.
that long. Um how would you how would you promote that idea? Like what would your advice be?
Well, I have a question for you. Did
Okay.
when you were going through that transformation, would you say that along that journey you became a healthier version of yourself?
Oh yeah, like I became more sane after I started actually interacting with women more. Like I was like the insanity ceased. So like
Hmm.
like I think one of the main reasons a lot of these guys are probably a little bit off is the lack of interaction with women. So I'd say but also it's also like the trying to like socialize more and be more appealing to the opposite sex and interact more, it forces you to start filling in gaps. Am I too talkative? Am I dressing well? Do I know how to like nonverbal you start to realize the holes in your game.
Yeah.
So I'd say like it's not even just a matter of like, oh, I'm dating now, I'm chill, but also the aspect of like you just become a more well-rounded and relaxed person. I became less opinionated, oddly enough. I became less like rah rah rah, like I just became more calm. So yeah,
By exposing yourself to more women?
that kind of created like a more like I became a lot more like that created like a certain calm, like an overarching calm.
Hmm.
But like trying to get to the space where I could actually be more attractive to women because you have to talk to them.
Sure.
So that means you're going from like being on the internet and the game all day to like talking to people. and then walking away from the interaction being like, oh fuck, I fucked up, I said that, or I did that. And I don't dwell on fuck ups. They usually, like, if I just let them sit in my head, over time they kind of just like sink in, and then like
Mm-hmm.
I become a little bit different over time. But I would say the it's like that iron sharpens iron aspect of like, okay, I went out, I butted my head, I got tackled a few times, I got punched in the head, like I went through that frustration and pain and like trial and error, and that was the key, like that was the key thing that actually made me a better person overall. I just became more mellow after I actually started interacting with women, but like becoming a better version of myself, it was the process.
I mean, I think so. From my understanding of life, from everything that I've read and everything that I've observed, like healthy is the goal and should be the goal if we're gonna have a goal. And
Hmm.
healthy means well-rounded to me. So like healthy with finances, healthy with
Okay.
physical health, mental health, spiritual health, knowing who you are in the story. What's your trope? Are you a Luffy or are you a Zoro? Are you Usopp or are you Chopper? Like these are
Hmm.
different kinds of people. And if you don't know that, you're gonna not know like where do I fit? Even now to this day, I'm always dismantling myself and I'm like, okay, who am I
Hmm.
today? I used to be the girl that was infamous for reading a book a day and never going anywhere without a book. Girl, I haven't held a book in like, but that was my thing for years. Even recently, now that I've been working out more, I'm like, oh, one day I'm going to wake up and people are going to be like, oh, she's the girl who works out. Not
Okay.
just the girl who says she's working out, because it's actually going to show in like a much more prominent way. And then you
Hmm.
know how you go from like the fat guy to the muscular guy?
Yeah.
You actually change categories. And so the question
Hmm.
is, are you changing a category that feeds your consciousness and your joy? Are you changing one that's for other people?
I've never once actually made a change from that perspective
Which one?
of like joy and like all that other
Mm.
like important stuff. Nah, I've been full like total like just degenerate. Like I'm dead ass. Like I totally like look, what's gonna get me as close to the destination of just like money, women, success as possible. All that other important like godly stuff.
Yeah.
Was that Jen Jones balling? Like I was not worried about that at all. I'm just like, look,
Sure.
man, like I've spent my whole life in the church.
Mm.
I
Mhm.
like honestly like I I don't want to start giving too much like advice
Mhm.
cuz like I'm such a like I was saying before, like I've kind of like lost my mind in the sense that like I'm not normal in the sense that like I know that I want like hyper success. I want like I want stuff that's I'm not I kind of accepted the fact that I'm fulfilled by really surface level shit. But at
Mm.
least I know. Like at
Yeah.
least like I know like okay, this is what I want to feel like my life is like in the right direction.
Mhm.
Um I think kind of I think it's okay to try to develop yourself from like baser or more service level desires. Eventually you should obviously start introspecting and trying to figure out what makes you happy and joyful and stuff like that, which relates to the whole like I want 10 hoes. Like no, you actually just want one wife. Like you want kids, you want a normal house, like that's what you want to be
Mhm.
joyful and happy. But ironically enough, I kind of have reached a space where like I know like okay, like when I'm 30, bro, like I can't go partying. Like this has to end. Like you know, like the flights, the parties. Hopefully this stuff happens, but like all the cool stuff,
Mhm.
there's got to be a time limit because I know that like there will be a time where I'm like not fulfilled by that anymore. But I do think it's not necessarily a bad thing for people to derive change from service level stuff. What do you
For
think
sure.
about that? Do you think it's dangerous? Do you think people should like shove it off as quickly as possible? What do you
No,
think?
no, no. I well, okay. First, it depends on what kind of a person you are. So if you're like my
Okay.
brother, who at like 10 years old was like, I'm going to be a Catholic and I'm going to be a husband and I'm going to be a he know. So I always say my brother was born into a bubble that was perfect for him and he's going to die in that bubble.
Okay.
It is a, and he always jokes. He's like, "Am I a level 5?" I was like, "You're a level 2, you Catholic, okay?" And like, he's just
Okay.
like, "This is my bubble, and I'm never leaving it." And he like loves this bubble, and he says like, "I had for the." He's the kind of guy who like his trauma level was like kind of normal, and he learned the right lesson, but he never had like debilitating trauma. He never had like his life was just good. He had a good hand dealt to him, and I'm happy for him. He does out of all the people I don't believe in deserve, but like I'm glad it went to him. I just like he's a very good
Okay.
person. And He asked me one time, he's like, why do you got to touch the stove so much, bro? He's like, can you just learn from observing? I was like, apparently not. Okay, apparently not. And
Right.
so I think I did chase like sort of like freedom, right? I left my parents' house at 21 and I was like, okay, who am I? What am I doing with my life? What kind of job do I want? What kind of girl do I want? What kind of life? Like, what do I want? And I was bar hopping and partying with friends and working and kind of depressed and buying makeup and buying high heels and figuring out, like, is this what I want? Is this what I want? Is this what I want? Is this what I
Okay.
want? And I spent a lot of money, got into a lot of debt trying to figure out, like, is this what I want? I bought cars. I did all this stuff. I was like, is this what I bought? My friends always say, like, Brittany gets new cars like people get new boyfriends. I was like,
Whoa.
I got a lot of new cars, okay? And
Okay.
those were bad financial decisions. I made a lot of bad financial decisions. And I was seeking sort of the thrill. Man, you ever buy a new car? It feels great.
Yeah. I don't even fault you at this
It
point.
feels fucking great, bro. Okay. I love a new car, but damn, like, okay. So I started to have these like realizations where I was like, I'm chasing something. And I'm using like
Okay.
money as a way to chase. I remember when I went to therapy and she goes, so you have borderline personality disorder. I was like, okay. And I was like, what does that mean? And she goes, well, they tend to have like a relationship with like either lots of sex or lots of spending money. Which one are you? And I was like, well, I haven't had sex with like very many people. I'm like, depending on how you count it, like less than 10. And she goes, okay, what about money? I was like, oh, I got like 60K on a credit card right now, girl. And she's like, Brittany. And I'm like,
Yo.
ma'am. It's, I paid it off eventually, but girl, like I have had so much fucking and nothing. Rashad, if you look at that credit card statement, it's like Starbucks, earrings, makeup, high heels, dumb shit, dumb shit, dumb shit, dumb shit, dumb shit. Like I was so bad with money. And all of it, I was chasing some sort of aesthetic lifestyle, some sort of vibe, some sort of like eating out all the time. Oh my God, the way I would eat out. And so, I
What
look
pushed that? Where did that come from?
the want like the eating out and spending money.
Like the desire for an aesthetic lifestyle. What was the driver behind that?
One, control. I wanted to
Okay.
feel in control of my life. But two, I would look at pictures of people and be like, I want to look like that. I want to be that category of person. So I'd straighten my hair and try to look emo. I'd get tattoos and do high heels and be like, I'm going to be like Kat Von D. I'd be like, okay, no, I'm going to be like this girl. Oh, no, no, no. This person. Oh, I really like this person. I'm like, okay, who am I? And it was like a sense of like, who am I? But also I thought if I could just attain this, if I could be like Jackass and have a group of friends that prank each other, if I could just like
Mhm.
have like, this is so dumb. You want to hear? This is why I think sometimes I have autism or the dreamers. I have a dreamer attitude, bro. In my early
Okay.
20s, this is so fucking stupid. I've never told this story. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm
I'm
ready.
such a child. I'm a big child. In my early 20s,
Okay.
I had a collab with a big YouTuber and I was really excited. I thought this collaboration was going to make me so much money. I started Googling local mini mansions that were worth like $1.5 million. So my friends and I could live in the mansion together.
Not the friends. Not the
Do you want
friends.
to know how much money I made off that collaboration?
How much?
Like literally like $100.
You were plotting and planning all this big shit the whole time?
Bro, I went looking for houses around the neighborhood. I would drive around, find the house, like research the house. I was fully convinced this was my opportunity. And you know how many times God or goddess or whoever it is sent me that lesson? Probably like
How many
15,
times?
20 times. Oh, here's another big collab. So I could remind you, you're not going to be that girl that gets the one off and becomes like a successful YouTuber. Oh, here's another lesson because you still haven't figured it out. That's not your story, Brittany.
Mm,
It's not my
okay.
story. Ever since I was young, you know how many people told me when I was 25, 26, like, why are you still doing YouTube? You haven't got that one off. You've had so many collaborations. Why aren't you famous yet? And I'm like, why? Good question. How many people I hear Blair White all the time? Oh, yeah, one of my videos went viral and that was it. And I'm like, what? Like, that was never, even my videos with millions of views. I made like 5K off this video. Wasn't the reason I became a successful YouTuber.
Mhm.
So there was like life lessons the universe kept sending me where she was just like, it's not you, girl. This is not your story. You're slow and steady. And so when
Mhm.
I realized like, okay, something was severely wrong with me, it ended up being my health. And I ended up doing everything I could to organize that health. Mental, physical, everything. Every part of me, I was like, okay, that's going to be my goal now. And that is going to tell me, including my values, what I actually want and need from life. And that started my introspection journey like 4 years ago. Now I'm 4 years clean, no depression, no suicidal ideations, no self-harming, none of the like big issues I was dealing with. My borderline's basically in remission. My husband hasn't even seen it yet. I don't even like, sometimes I'm pretty sure I wouldn't even get diagnosed with it now if I got re-diagnosed. It's like everything is good, but everything had to be so bad for it to be good.
Okay.
But I was entitled. I kept thinking like, I'm gonna have one good collab and that's it. I'm gonna, ooh, look, all these people in my DMs, all these people in my phone book.
Interesting. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, that wasn't
Hmm.
my story, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, because it's like I've thought about like what drives like my motivations,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't control, but it was more so the aspect of like, because I always had like this ego of like, man, I'm so cool, like I'm the greatest, like I'm and then like I'm like I'm like I get to middle school, I'm one of the shortest kids in the class. I love basketball, but I was one of the shortest kids in the class,
Yeah.
and I'd just come back from the Virgin Islands, and I'm back in Georgia, which is where I'm from.
Mm.
And all these kids are better than me at basketball. Now I thought I was good at it, but clearly not. And it was like the first disappointment. Like I didn't make it on the team. Seventh grade didn't make it on the team, and I'm like, what the fuck is happening? Then like all my classmates were getting taller, and like that's when like the social status and all that shit starts to form. And I'm like, I'm kind of like the sitting. I think I'm like super fly and I'm like the greatest thing ever, but like I'm kind of like watching from a distance as everyone else is kind of like having their experiences and shit. And like I don't know, like I still like had this conspiracy theory in my head that like my classmates were like boxing me out of like social interactions outside of school. So I'm like, okay, like I'm getting done up right now. Like this is I'm in a bad spot. I feel like that was kind of like it was kind I'm kind of glad it happened because it kind of forced me to be a lot more, I guess, socially cognizant, but also like really really like obsessed with just like trying to make it. So
Mm.
I guess like maybe I guess like I don't know. I guess I was trying to understand like where is my are my motivations or is what drives me coming from like I don't want to say trauma, but just like little disappointments and stuff like that.
For
Like
sure.
where does it come from and stuff like that? Because I would like to believe like it's like a factory setting, like oh I'm just naturally ambitious, but it really is sometimes like little disappointments here and there kind of like give you that fuel of like whoa. Like I do think I'm supposed to be successful, but like a few things happen here and there that kind of humbled me and like made me realize like oh shit, like I'm not that guy. But yeah, I was curious about what your explanation was because I had discovered mine, and I was like, I wonder what makes other people go down these paths of like
Mm.
buying. I would have bought the cars too. I mean, to be honest, buying the cars and all this other shit. Like, I wanted. I was just curious. I wanted to
Yeah, no,
know.
I've had so many opportunities in my life, and every time I had an opportunity and it didn't feel right and I would turn it down, or maybe it felt right and then it didn't lead where I thought it was going to lead. It was like the universe reminding me, one, to stay humble, and two, to be honest with you, not that I believe in a God, but if there was one, they knew I would have been able to handle any kind of success at a young age. So
Okay.
many people can, and I don't think I would have been one of those people. I was a very different person 10 years ago. Like, very different. There's a foundation to Brittany that's always been the same, but I mean, the way I thought, the way I talked to people, the way I even like treated people, so different. So political, so like you're the devil if you vote like a certain way, like so like closed-minded, like just, it just would have been so different whether it was Republican Brittany or progressive Brittany. She was just so like black and white. And so I
Okay.
just don't think I would have been able to handle fame. And then I would have been known like I think about it now, like, oh my gosh, that would have been such a weird thing to handle at such a young age when I was already dealing with my mental health. In some ways, I do think I was
Mhm.
born with this personality. Absolutely. I think we all are born with our personalities. I don't think those change. I think the relationship we have with our personalities do. Like, look, I'm always going to be this person, but this person is going to change so much. And she's not going to change her foundation, but she's going to change aesthetically. She's going to change in the way that she has a relationship with things. And I just want to make sure I'm always having a healthier relationship with things. And I think that
Okay.
takes a lot of patience because, like, even my brain is like, and then I'm like, shh, patience is what the universe is going to teach me for the rest of my life because, girl, I don't have it. But it is the best thing to practice is like patience. And
Mhm.
right now I'm all about my joy and my curiosity. So that's what I tell my audience is that I think you should seek out your joy, which is like furthest from evil, and evil, not like that construct we talk about in like animes, but kind of furthest from your joy. Things that leave you in a rut, things that make you bitter, things that make you hate and resent people, all of that is furthest from joy. And joy is the answer. The question is like, what does your joy look like? And your joy has to come from a real relationship with like your consciousness. And then you have to decide like, well, how do I even have a relationship with who I am? Is it through a religion or
Mhm.
through a culture or through family? Because all of that could be valid, but we don't even know that. We don't even know why. Like, I love just asking people like, why? And then seeing like how much they thought about it, myself included. My husband does that to me all the time. He's like, why? And I was like, and then I have to sit there and think for like 2 hours, like, you're right. Why did I say that? Why do I think that? Like, why do I feel that? It's really hard and it's exhausting to do all that emotional labor, but I do think it's necessary. And
Mhm.
I think I'm less convinced people they need to do it when they're young. I think that they need to do it when they're ready.
What's ready like to you? What does ready sound like to you?
Oh, vaguely when it makes sense. Like when it's natural, like you can force yourself to try to get something, but you know when you're working on like a puzzle or like something for work and you're just like, bro, I'm not getting this. I need to take like a 10-minute break. And then it like
Mhm.
refreshes your brain and then you come back and you see it in a different way. That
Yeah.
10-minute break could be 10 years, could be 5 years, could be your whole lifetime. I just think like sometimes
Mm.
we try to force ourselves to problem solve something that we're not even the person we need to be to problem solve it.
Okay.
And so I think like it's about gathering tools and figuring it out. So when it comes to dating or relationships, it's like I know what you want in your end goal, like you see your life. The question is, what do you got to do to be that person? Maybe it's getting a six pack. It's probably more or less being a good person and having values. It's probably more or less
Yeah.
growing into an adult and who you are. Now, you might be the story where you meet your partner young. My brother was 22 and 21, I think, him and his wife. And that's beautiful, bro. That's so young. Oh my God. That would have changed my whole life if I had gotten married in my early 20s. But like they did that and it was the right decision for them because they wouldn't have been
Mhm.
anyone else. It wasn't like they were going to move to the big city and like try something new with their life. That's not their story. So the question
Right.
is like, what is your story? And I don't think a lot of people are willing to admit like, oh, but I wanted that one. And it's like, do you? Because I wanted the top CEO girl. I wanted the
Mm.
walking to work at 5 a.m. I wanted like so much in my head. I was like, I'm going to drive the cars and I'm going to have the money and I'm going to live in a high rise and I'm going to have this. And then as I got older, I was like, why aren't I aiming for that? Why do I keep like choosing to watch anime and hang out with my friends and go to the gay club? None of that has to do with waking up at 5 a.m. and fucking being a
Mm.
CEO. And even now,
Okay.
that's not who I am. But at one point in my life, I thought that was my dream.
Hmm. So you figured out that you wanted to go in a different path. Was it from having that moment of like, okay, now is the time to like ask why? Where was that moment where you said, okay, like trying to like be this like character from this Instagram post or
Mm.
whatever? When did you like make that like, no, this is where I'm supposed to be?
Um, I had noticed that I was going into I was having a pattern of like self destruction.
Okay.
And I noticed that I was repeating mistakes. And I
Mm.
do not like repeating mistakes. So I
Right.
was like, okay, girl, this is our like fourth time. That's a lot, even
Okay.
for us. That's a lot. So one day I remember like realizing like, oh, this is you. Like your life's not happening to you. You're creating your life. And like this is what you decided to do. And I was like, oh, I'm embarrassed. And I was like, oh my
Mm.
God, like I'm ashamed of my life. And I didn't realize until that moment, like I made this. Like you make your bed, you gotta lay in it.
Yeah.
I made my bed and it was disgusting. Just
Okay.
not to standard. And so I remember I was sitting with my best friend and I looked at her and I was like, I was dealing with a breakup, of course, a getting back together breakup relationship. And I looked at her, I was like, and I blocked him and I was like, and I looked at her, she goes, okay, but like, is this like every other time? I was like, no, this is it. And she goes, are you sure? And I had like literally cried to her parents about this boy. And I was like, no,
Hmm.
this is it. I just had an epiphany. He said the last thing he will ever say to me. And it was the last thing he ever said to me. And to this day, I'm so proud of myself because that was truly it. But I knew, Rashad, I knew every time before, though I was changing, I hadn't fundamentally changed. And in that moment, it felt like a transformation had occurred where I went from being the fat girl to the skinny girl, or skinny girl to the fat girl. Whatever happened, something drastically changed and I realized it. And then I packed my bags and I moved to Arizona and I restarted my life. And it was the best decision I ever made. But my life was falling apart and I was the reason for it.
Mm,
And now my life is successful and I'm the reason for it. But
interesting.
it's not me alone and it never is. Your life is destructive because you choose it, because you choose the people who are in it. My life is successful because I chose the people in it.
Okay.
So it's not that you do it alone literally, but you do make the absolute decision of who to have in your life. And I've been making better decisions.
Okay. I was curious because I'm like, I've had those moments too where I'm like, I haven't, because I'm young, kind of. I kind of had those moments where I'm like, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? Like, I want to be this big YouTuber and stuff like that, and I'm convinced it's gonna happen. But then, like, sometimes I'm like, man, am I moving like one? Like, I'm up at like 2, 3 a.m. playing like Crusader Kings 3 and like Victoria 3 and all these bullshit games, and I'm just like I'm playing games, and because you always want it sooner. And sometimes I've rationalized it to myself. I'm like, well, I'm 20. I'm 20. I was 22 like last month. I turned 23 last month.
Happy birthday.
And I was like, man, thank you. And I was like, man, I'm 22. I'm not ready for like all this shit. Like, I'm not ready. But then like, it's like you said, you kind of had that look around where you start surveying the scenery and you're like, okay, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. And I had the controller. It's not like someone else is like driving the ship. And it was one of those moments where I kind of had to like come to terms with it for a little bit. I haven't fully embraced it the way you have, but like hearing you say it was like, okay, like I should probably really embrace that a little bit more because I don't want to be 25 still like rolling my wheels in the mud with this stuff. Like I want to be 25 and it's worked out and like everything is kind of like in the right direction. So hearing you like break that down was like, okay, like that made sense. Like, okay, I can stick to that and that makes sense. So that was definitely a good piece of advice because I'm kind of like going through that phase where like I'm realizing like, okay, this YouTube shit is for the long haul. It's not overnight. It's gonna take time.
Yeah.
I had my first channel ever get deleted like 4 years ago. Like I've had all sorts of ups and downs and shit. So yeah, that was definitely some good insight. I noticed you were you did that video about that self-help guru that was like talking about like I don't care what the data says.
Yeah.
Some shit like that. And in the video then like went to some guy who was doing like some like video essay. And he was talking about like the dangers of self-improvement and stuff like that. I got some toxic takes for you if you're ready for them.
Hit me.
I'm not gonna lie, I do kind of believe that. I think that people kind of underestimate, and maybe it's like it depends on how invested you are and how much of a fuck you give. But I feel like there's a subset of people that actually, I remember I mentioned this to you. I said when I was watching Red Pill content for the first time, a lot of them would kind of mention like most of y'all aren't going to take this seriously. You're kind of just here to hear me talk about how women ain't shit. And then there's like a small percentage of you guys that actually like want out of this loneliness, this brokenness, this like fatness. Like I do think that on some level you kind of have to embrace, and young men should embrace, a kind of like almost self-detonation to an extent where you need to like you have to start butting your head. You need to go to the gym, and obviously like, all of this stuff is positive, but I do think young men do need to for a second like forget about all that other shit, like how to be a good husband and boyfriend and like how to be a good person for just 1 second, because you're probably not an asshole, but for like a good year or maybe 2, focus on how to actually like be attractive. Because the unfortunate reality, and this is gonna sound fucked up and toxic as fuck, but fuck it, I'm sending it. when you're like 19 to like 25, no one gives a fuck about any of that shit.
Mm.
And you can kind of like sit there and like pontificate and philosophize, if that's even philosophize or whatever the fuck, about, you know, being a good partner and being a good person, all this stuff. And that's important. But I think that it's really, really underrated and underestimated, like how much of like an abyss a lot of young men are looking into. And I've kind of looked at an abyss too. I was like 20, I was like 21. And I'm like, okay, I'm 21, no girlfriend, no money, but that's fine because I just got out of the army after breaking my ankle. I'm kind of like floating, but I'm looking around me and everyone's doing just fine.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like there's a significant amount of young men who feel that way. And I feel like the left or like the blue pill advice is going too fucking soft. I think young guys do need to like hunker down a little bit, harden up a little bit, toughen up a little bit, and really focus on being a little bit more hyper masculine for like a good 2 years. Forget about all that other soft shit, forget about all that reasonable shit. For like 2 years, you need to actually start tapping into just pure masculine energy for like good 2 years straight. If you don't like it, fuck it. But like, give it 2 years, because if you don't, you're gonna be miserable for the rest of your life. And it's like my crazy psychotic take. But
That's funny. Last night, my husband and I were watching TikToks together, and we came across this TikTok where it was like this guy like working out with his guru, and he's like doing these pull-ups, and his guru's like hitting him on the abs, you know, like with the stick. And then
okay,
he's
that's
like,
crazy.
you know, he's doing all these things. And I'm like, man, men are such masochists, bro. They get hard on this. They're like, look how tough I am. My guru's hitting me with a stick. And my husband looks at me and I go, I kind of want to do that. And I was like, I hate myself. And I was like, there's a part of my brain that's like, I want to be Kill Bill status. I want to train. I want to be told I can't even eat rice unless like I'm pick it myself. Like I want to be told, like I want to go through such a... Listen, as a girl who was often called a boy because I was raised as a boy, that's what my dad always says. It's a joke, but he says that. He goes, I raised you as a boy. And I go, okay, there is something in my brain that admires like hyper masculinity in the sense that like I want to think I can survive like in the wilderness fighting a bear. Like that's why we have a bear emoji for my members, guys. Bear emoji in the chat, because I can fight a bear and Sneeko at the same time, guaranteed. I love bears; they're so cute. But
I just,
bro,
you're fucking crazy,
bro. I want to hug a bear because they never kill you on the first hug. So if I hug a bear once, I know I'm gonna survive it. Name someone who hugged a bear once and died. You can't.
You might have a point.
It's always the guy who hugged the bear 100 times, and I'm like, idiot.
That 100
Yeah,
time got him.
times.
No, I'm not.
You know?
I kind of. I posted a video. If you didn't see it, that's fine. But I posted a video called when I fist fought with a broken ankle.
No, what?
I don't know if you've seen that one.
No,
yeah,
no.
I uploaded it like 2 days ago.
Okay, tell me.
So it was when I was in the army. I was 19. I broke my ankle from sliding down the wall, snapped it in half. My foot was like all the way around, and it had to be put back together with plates and screws. So I came back to the Bay. The Bay's like where like 50, all 50 of us degenerates live in one spot.
Yeah.
And I came back, and I was a top bunk guy, so I had to come down from the top bunk and take a new bed.
Damn.
Now, after I broke my ankle, a lot of guys quit. They were like, oh, I don't want to go out like Crenshaw. Oh my God. A lot of them quit. And like the drill sergeants, they play mind games. So a lot of them were like, he broke his ankle and he still wanted to train. You're a bitch. You know, mind games and all this bullshit. But luckily for me, enough of them had quit to where I could have an empty bottom bunk. Mm-hmm. So I ended up bottom bunking under this kid who would like get revenge on you by like taking your sheets and like wiping them up his ass or his crotch. So I'm telling you, this is a real story.
Ma'am.
So I thought he was joking because I'm 18, I'm naive, I'm a kid. I don't really get it. And he threatens the kid that sleeps like adjacent to me on the top bunk, and he's like, you know, I'm gonna wipe your sheets up my ass and blah blah blah. I'm gonna fart on your sheets. I'm gonna all this other shit. And I'm like, all right, he's just joking. So I told the guy, I'm like, yo, Alvarado, he's gonna do blah 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 to your sheets. Now I'm thinking nothing of it. I'm thinking it's a joke. Then he's like, oh, Crenshaw, you're next. So then I'm like, oh shit, this motherfucker's not playing. And then it like registered to me. I'm like, is it because my ankle's broke? Like, what does he think? Like, I'm the one to try this with. So I'm like, all right, cool. Now me, like, I'm kind of like I like to fall back and like look and see what's gonna happen next before I make a move. So like for the next week or two, the threats just keep mounting up. Eventually, he was like, I asked him, I'm like, so like, why is this your go-to threat? Like, what's going on? Like, can we reason here? Like, can we talk about this? And he's basically holding us all at booty hole point, like gunpoint, but like booty hole point. And he's like, I'm Jewish. My religion says eye for an eye. So like I will get back at you. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's not like what they meant. Like, I don't think that's how that works. But I kind of realized like, okay, I'm dealing with someone who's using religious text as justification for why they're about to wipe my sheets up their ass. So I realized, okay, I'm out of options here, okay? But I was kind of like my ego took a big hit where I'm like, this motherfucker thinks I'm a bitch because my ankle's broken. Okay, like nah. So eventually I confronted him in front of the entire platoon, and I'm like, this motherfucker's wiping his sheets up asses and blah blah blah. And I'm like, to top it all off, I'm gonna fight this motherfucker because he thinks I'm
with a
pussy.
broken ankle.
No, 100%. Part of it was also because like my dad was always pressuring me at a young age. He was like, you're a soft guy. You need to always like make sure that when people try you, you shut it down. Like there's nothing wrong with being soft, but like when someone's coming at you, shut it down because you're not gonna get a second chance. So I was like, all right, cool. So I confront him, and I'm like, yo, like let's fight in the laundromat. So there's a bunch of like washing machines and drying machines in the laundromat, and everybody starts jumping up on them and like yelling and acting a fool. And we both go in on both sides, and I'm in crutches. I cannot walk. I'm in crutches. Like, I swear to God, yo, when I tell you the ego was through the roof, like,
oh man,
I refuse to be a bitch. I'm like, you are not about to like bitch me, broken ankle or not. You're about to see me. So I crutch in, and he walks in on the other side, and we just meet in the middle, and we just start swinging. And needless to say, I did not win that fight. I didn't get the shit beat out of me, but I did catch a few punches. Damn. I ended up with lockjaw for like a week. Oof. But it was no big deal. I mean, he was about to body slam me, and they ended the fight because like, bro, he can't stand. You can't body slam him. Like if you knock him out, it's one thing, but if you body slam him, you can't do that. So they ended the fight. I got saved because I had friends there. If I weren't their friends, they probably would have let me be like an entertainment casualty. Damn. Like, oh, collateral. That was funny. But they saved me. And the point of the story is, I definitely like, I think all young men have to like, you gotta fucking, like, I think you should give in a little bit to that like hyper masculinity. You gotta explore it just a little bit. Cause I know it's like, by all means, interrupt.
Did he wipe his butt on your sheets?
I don't know. Okay, so let me tell you this. So like I would inspect my sheets every day for like residue. Didn't find anything. But I took the threat seriously because like they just felt serious. I'm like,
well, I wonder if the fight made him rethink his decision to target you.
He probably really went through with it then because I didn't just fight him. I told the entire platoon like, yo, look at the guy we got over here. So it's kind of like I made an attempt to destroy his reputation, and then I also like we fist fought. I don't know if he did. I mean, I slept on the floor for like 2 weeks after that. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna grab all my stuff and sleep on the other side of the day on the floor. I'm not gonna subject myself to booty hole sheets. I'm good on that.
How did it help you doing the fight with him?
Honestly, it helped in the sense that like you could call it ego, but like it just felt good to know like I can trust myself to stand up for myself. Broken ankle or not, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
And it also helped me in the sense that like I earned the respect of everybody because I was on my phone all day in the platoon, like listening to music, not in the platoon, in the bay. So like a lot of them probably like like Crenshaw, this fat fuck just sitting on the bed, just on the phone, like this motherfucker. Fighting with a broken ankle definitely like it cleared up any misconceptions about me and like whether I'm like a stand-up guy or not. Like it was very much proven.
Yeah.
So it was an ego thing, but it was also like I feel like it was a masculinity. You see Sneeko like fighting these people and like getting all these fights. It's kind of like the same thing, except like I actually had to do this because there was no other way. Like I had to make sure this person understood like you cannot wipe my sheets up your ass.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this is a true story,
bro.
And like there is an ego to it.
Mm.
And my dad told me the same. He was like, "Look, go do it. Like, fight. Like, you got to do what you got to do because like you got a broken ankle. People are gonna want to try you because you got a broken ankle. So like, do what you got to do." So yeah, I relate to that whole like fascination with like hyper masculinity and I'm gonna be this bad motherfucker. I think young men should explore it as best they can for a little bit because I feel like you need to have some sort. You got to be in touch with it a little, not a little bit, to a good enough extent, not only to be attractive to women, but also to just be content with yourself. I feel like some guys they're not into it, but I don't know.
I would say that life is about balance, as everyone has said
Mhm.
before us. And I would say that something about masculinity correlates with confidence, which correlates with like a trust of the self. Like one thing that I will
Mm.
say that I feel like I have, because my husband always jokes like I suffer from toxic masculinity, me. And he's just like
You?
yeah, because like the big like I'm not exaggerating when I say like my dad not only raised me as a boy, but I judged myself through the lens of like how to be the best man in the room.
Okay.
I've never identified with being like the best girl in the room because like women weren't aspiring to do the things I wanted until I met those
Okay.
women. Then I jumped into a different bubble and I found those women. And then I recontextualized the women in my own life and I was like, oh no, like there's a lot here. But like I really value, I mean, look at me, I'm the breadwinner in my relationship. Like I really
Okay.
thrive being like a working person and thinking about those things. But mostly I thrive also my ability to like survive a situation, which is why I think my
Mm.
assault was so like mind shattering for me because I was like, I froze. I froze. Like this person who prided herself in being so capable and so tough, and like when shit hits the fan, I'm ready. I wasn't ready, and so I've spent my life like getting ready, not for the next time because it's a horrible way to think, but you know what I'm saying. The next time I'm ready, but like it's one
Hmm.
of those things where like life will teach you lessons, and it will teach you a humbling that is about a humbling. I definitely believe in like a universal humbling. That life will tell you like, oh, is your ego telling you you're like super tough? Let's see. Let's fucking test
Yeah.
that. And I got tested and I failed my test, bro. But what I did learn from that moment, and I think what I take with me moving forward is like it doesn't define me. What defines me is my ability to get
Right.
back up, which is a very masculine idea. Get back
Right.
up. Get up.
Mm.
And like getting up is everything for me. So like I think about these Gen Z girls. So I'm worried about Gen Z girls a little bit. Where I'm looking at them and I'm like, get up. Get up. You're not getting up. And I can see you not getting up. You're freaking out over like the tiniest life lesson like life gave you this lesson and you're already crumbling. Holy shit. Get up. And so a part of me is like, how do I like give these girls the trait of masculinity without losing their femininity? I think the fear is that masculine men are afraid to dabble in femininity because they're afraid they're going to lose their masculinity. And women are afraid to dabble in masculinity because they're going to lose their femininity. You're not. You're just going to find your balance between the two. You got to have the balance. And then your set personality will probably have one more than the other. Me, obviously, I think people describe me as more masculine than feminine, but also
Mm.
like it makes sense for my personality type. I've been this way my whole life. So like that makes sense. Or like my brothers met my husband and they're like, he's kind of soft. I was like, your mom's soft. I was
Mm.
like, I was like, I'm sitting there
Yo,
like,
you're
bro,
crazy.
but like, I mean, it's my mom. You know what I mean? But like, okay, but like, there's a joke of like my, I've always been the more masculine partner, every partner I've ever dated, and I
Wow.
think I need that balance. I need the balance of like my partners
So
all look.
that's where like I could beat you up, bro. Stuff comes from when I'm watching your content. All the threats and all.
That comes up growing up with a brother. My brother called me the other day to catch up. He's like, bro, flex, bro. And I was like, you flex, bro. And like, we're literally like, that's what I'm saying. Like, I have brothers that like my whole life not only like called me up to be like, how many push-ups you do today? Literally, my little bro checks me the other day, how many push-ups you do today? And I was like, and that's the
You're
relationship. Like,
crazy.
we don't call my sister and do that, by the way. My sister's femme as fuck. Like, we don't call her up. And we're like, how many push-ups you do today? She goes to the gym, but it's not the same energy.
Mm.
She doesn't want to wrestle. She doesn't want to hang out with us. She's wanting to like fucking go hunting with us. Like she's like, no, she's not very girly, but she's still not like she's the nerd. She's like, nope. So there is
Yeah.
something about like even within myself. So I do have a pride in masculinity. I think men should have a pride in masculinity. I just don't think they should be afraid to dabble in the femininity.
I would argue that Gen Z women are actually more tough than Gen Z men.
You
Yeah.
think so?
Yeah.
Really? Tell me about that. What does that mean when you say that? What
Well,
kind of a
look at them.
girl
They're
archetype?
they're getting everything done.
Oh, like they are.
They're getting everything. They're accomplishing all the shit that we can't even we can't even do fucking schoolwork, okay? And this comes from somebody who has struggled with schoolwork the whole life. Women are going to college, they're getting jobs. I mean, if I had to judge who's actually like getting back up, it's definitely not us.
Damn.
So I would argue that there is a I think I know exactly what you're talking about. Like an ideological lack of masculinity in the sense of like not being able to withstand the toughness of the world on an ideological level, like
Yeah.
succumbing to like
Yeah.
groupthink and like not being able to confront certain things. So in that aspect, you're actually on point. Um, but I would argue like in a general sense, I think Gen Z chicks are actually like
Okay,
looking
let me
like
say it like this. You know how like the red pillars will be like, or the masculine people will be like, um, people are so soft, kids are so soft, everyone's so soft nowadays. I'm like, you could
mhm,
be a little softer, my bro. But then I look at these girls, and the girls are like, why isn't everyone nicer? And why isn't the world? I'm generalizing so hard right now. Why isn't the world more
mhm,
ideal? And I'm like, grow the fuck up. And I'm like, oh, you could be a little tougher, and you could be a little nicer, and like, there's like this weird, like, okay, wait. I think people are just going too hard, and so they're not meeting in the middle. So when I hear like Gen Z people be like, who am I supposed to be dating? Who am I supposed to be with? Do you even know what category you're in? Do you even have that balance within yourself? You know what I mean? And then what does it mean when, because this is my fear. I see this in a lot of like relationships, not marriages. Marriages actually do fairly well when you're married in a certain statistic, but relationships in general is like if you're not
mhm.
growing together, you're growing apart.
Okay.
And often you're growing apart because you're learning about yourself mid relationship and you're discovering, like, oh shit, I don't actually want this lifestyle. I want something different. And then your partner's like, holy fuck, you changed on me. But the thing is
Mm,
like you are going to change all along. The moment you had a moment of asking yourself why, what, and how. And like the dilemma is like, I don't think we're teaching that particular skill to anybody. And so, of course, women are going to hyper focus on like, I know what I have to do. I have to be independent. I can't rely on a man. And then the men are going to go, I know what to do. I need to get a Bugatti and I need to get six packs and I need to do this. And so, like, they hyper focus on those things. And those are really easy to attain in a sense that, like, XYZ, they're not easy. Like, nothing's
mhm.
easy, but you know what I mean. Like, it's
They're
clear.
straightforward.
Straightforward, straightforward. Thank you. It's straightforward. Same with school. Finish school. Double down, finish school. It's like if you have the
Mm,
goal and you can do it, you can do it. You ever meet those people who are like, oh, I'm in school, but you know for a fact they're never going to graduate?
yeah. Yeah.
They're not actually in school because they have a focus. They're in school to tell people, oh, I'm in school. I'm like, uh huh.
Or to put off the inevitable of confronting their life goals or whatever. You know how that
Exactly.
goes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I look at two different. So what, even when I was like, when I'm dating or courting or when I'm looking at my friends and my friends go, "Ugh, I have so many great friends in my life, but they're always just like picking up new hobbies all the time. They claim are going to be their next like job that are never going to be their
Hmm.
job. But like
Okay.
that's the trope they are. That's even I in my 20s would do that all the time. Like, is this my job? Is this my job? Is this my job? Is this my job? And the joke was like, what is Brittany into this week?
Okay.
And so when you know who you are in that regard, I think you can have a better relationship with sort of like not only moving forward, but understanding that you're like missing that balance. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying? So like in terms of adding more masculinity into your life, I associate masculinity with career because I associate the forcefulness you need in order to work. I think that is a masculine trait.
Hmm.
Even though you use femininity within your jobs like caregiving and stuff, you still have to have the masculinity of showing up and fighting your patients, fighting your clients, fighting in general is what I think is masculine. So I think
Hmm.
in order to be successful, you have to be masculine, which is why these women who are going to school and getting houses are told what? They're masculine. They're too masculine.
Hmm.
But why is that masculine?
Mm. Well, providing is considered a masculine thing for one.
It
Like
is,
like for you, you're comfortable with being the main provider, but most women, no,
for
they're
sure.
not comfortable with that. So it's like they're looking for a guy who can top their masculinity. And I think a lot of men are saying, well, instead of me topping your masculinity, I want you to stop being so masculine.
Yes.
And that's
Yes.
probably never gonna happen
Yes.
because we're living in a world where like women don't want to be dependent upon a guy. Like let's say he dies, like worst case scenario, he dies, and next thing you know, you're trying to figure it all out. Or
Bro.
maybe, you didn't get an education, you don't have qualifications, you married young, and then you get divorced, and now you're just sitting here with
Mhm.
a bunch of kids and you have no like You have no clue what to do next. So I think there's an aspect of masculinity where, like, as young men, Gen Z men, instead of demanding that women be less masculine, you kind of have to figure out how to be more masculine in your woman, which is very possible. You don't even necessarily have to earn more. That's a big part of it, but like, um, I think the solution for sure isn't like trying to tell women to stop being so masculine. Like if you're dealing with a chick that wants to like, kick your ass or is like pulling up on you and like some like New York's Bronx chick that's like, yo son, like, you know what I'm saying? Like obviously you're fucked. Like you can't fix that. But like a normal girly girl who just earns more than you, maybe goes to, I mean, these chicks are more consistent in the gym. They're
Yeah.
even more consistent with their diet. Like it's looking it's not looking good for us Gen Z dudes because women are actually like, I'd say in terms of like doing everything society says to do, women are definitely in a much more masculine frame than young men. And I think that's kind of like young men are kind of like drifting in a weird sense where they're looking for like, okay, what's the path? Like what's the model? And then your Andrew Tate's come in, he's buff, he's
Yeah.
in shape, he's got the money, he's got the women. He preaches about, going through trauma and going through tough things in life and shit like that. But like we said before, the hole in that game is like, okay, like now you're this super alpha Chad, but like, can you be a father and a husband and shit like that? So I think that Gen Z women, in terms of like you said, they're like ideologically too soft. Where like do you feel like it's a lot of these like TikTok posts where like you got to see a lot of like these Gen Z girls like talking up? Like, where do you see it?
Um, Partially, I think it's also even though a lot of the women look like they're fiercely independent, I think they also fall into the trap that a lot of people fall into, which is like, okay, I did the thing. Now what? And I'm like, oh, like you didn't even do it necessarily for you. You did it because of a reaction to something else. Like, I don't want to be
Right.
dependent on a man. That's a reaction to something. That's not for you.
Hmm.
And so I'm like, okay, so you didn't do this because you're like, oh, I just love working and I want a house. You're like, I can't be dependent on a man. And I'm like, oh, that's like says something else to me. So I feel like a lot of the girls, I think, okay, I'm going to generalize this particular bubble of specifically heterosexual women. They do
Hmm.
want a man who provides. They do want a man who makes more than them. They do want a man who fits that stereotype, but they also want to be independent and they also don't want to depend on a man, but they also don't know how to give that up in exchange to being sort of a woman who allows her man to make more or to lead in that particular aspect, but then they romantically want it, but then they don't know how to incorporate that into real life. So
Hmm.
I would say like the dilemma is that people want a lot of contradictory things that can work, but you have to know when to evoke them. So like I feel like in my relationship, it's like a mood thing of like, when are we focusing on, emotions? When are we focusing on analyzing? When are we focusing on our, like, when we're doing the finances together, like, neither of us are, like, it's not that we're married. It's like we're in business mode. Okay, look, we spent $5 on milk this week, bro. I feel like I'm drinking a lot of milk. And it's like, that has nothing to do with, like, I'm a wife and I want more milk. It's like, hey, does this fit into the budget? And it's like you're in, like, a different
Hmm.
mode. I feel like people think your husband is always going to be in sexy mode. Your wife's always going to be in I'm ready to fuck mode or like I'm ready to, modes happen and come throughout the day, but I think people think if I just get this, everything will fall into place, like as if life falls into place. The only thing that falls into place is when the timing is right. Naturally, things fall into place, but everyday life, you have to work at it. You have to put it there. And so I think these
Hmm.
women mean well. I think they're amazing. I'm so impressed by so many of them. Like I even love the talk around like explicit consent, like what a big change from when I was a growing up millennial. That's so beautiful. But you got to do it correctly. And doing it correctly means within reason, and within reason means knowing you can go beyond reason, which a lot of
Hmm.
people are not willing to admit that they can go beyond reason. You're not being reasonable. And I don't think anyone wants to have that conversation. I don't think men are being reasonable and thinking women should just settle for them. I don't think women are being reasonable and thinking I deserve a man who makes $1 million a year. I don't think people are being reasonable when they think they deserve things.
I see where masculinity comes into that, in the sense that like an aspect of masculinity is also like kind of like ideological independence. Like I've noticed, and this might sound like crazy, but I've noticed that women are a lot more like, okay, what's the temperature in the room? Let me acclimate to that, which is a very useful skill that men need to learn. Like I know we like hyper like romanticize men are more independent thinkers and blah blah blah. You might be autistic, bro. You might not you might not be reading the room, bro. You might not be like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
If
yeah,
all
yeah.
the shorties in the room are telling you that you're fucking up, you might be like, you know what I'm saying? It's, check the room. There's also a masculine aspect of like accepting when something isn't good enough even when it's not fair. Like you said, like young men accepting the fact that look, like women are earning now, women are getting money now, women are qualified now, like the whole like please stop having rights not gonna work.
Bro.
You're gonna have to figure this out, you know what I'm saying? I think the red pill was sane when it was like, look, women have what they have, this is a good thing, let's navigate this. Rather than like, okay, 10 wives, bitches ain't shit, retract voting, please don't let them read, don't let them have books. Like that was where shit was like, oh, like, y'all have lost the plot.
Yeah.
I think you're right about the lack of masculinity, probably in maybe both genders, in the sense of like women are a little bit too ideologically like, okay, where's the herd? And then men are a little bit too feminine in the sense of like, yo, like shit sucks. Gotta get around it. Like these like fantasies of like, you know, like Sharia law 9000, but the Christian version. And like it's just not, it's never gonna happen. And I know it's like it's really like cute and like marketable and like that's like the whole hype now, but I feel like there is a feminine aspect to it where I hate to call it feminine, but there's kind of like a, let's call soft aspect to it where it's like you don't want to confront this thing, so you'd much rather have what's in the way be removed for you rather than just like saying, okay, like I'm out of shape, women like in shape guys, let me get in shape, or I don't make a lot of money, let me get to my grind so I can have some money for, you know, my wife or kids or whatever.
Bro, I feel like what's more soft than entitlement?
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of like I'd say entitlement is like the first thing that dies when you start testing, when you start like trying to figure out, okay, what am I doing wrong? Entitlement has to die. I think one of my favorite Kevin Samuels clips is where he was like, dude, like, did you see the one where he asked this guy, how big is your you know what?
No.
I don't know if you've ever okay, so this guy who was like I don't know, like maybe 29 or something, no job. Like I think he was either making like minuscule money or no job. And Kevin Samuels was like, okay, how big is your Johnson? And he was like, I don't know, like I'm not Ron Jeremy, but like, you know. And he was like, how big is your Johnson? He's like, so it's small. So like you think that you with a small Johnson and no money and no career think you can demand XYZ from women? He was like, you don't even have a big you don't even have a big dick. It was like one of the, it was comedy, but it was like, damn, he's not wrong. Like you can't even provide like the base level thing and you're entitled to that extent. And I feel like that was the one aspect of the red pill that people don't give enough credit for. It was like a lot of these guys were ruthless to the men. It's like, dude, if you don't have anything, excuse yourself from the conversation because you can't start making demands when you don't have any leverage. Like you can't do that. And I think that both men and women need to realize, like, look, like if you're a woman and you want your man to be all, you know, provider and blah blah blah, like you gotta be a little bit more reasonable and like and you're feminine and shit. Like you can't be trying to run the relationship if he's supposed to be the one in charge. And if you're a man and you want to lead, you gotta be a leader. You gotta embody the traits of someone who's above, in a sense. Like you gotta be kind of better.
Yeah.
So
I think well, finish your thought. I don't want you to lose it.
No, I mean I was done.
Yeah. I was thinking about sort of like a confidence in relationships and how a lot of these dynamics are obviously like, I think a lot of them are motivated by insecurity, and I sadly think are the foundation of the relationship as well. Like you ever hear about those relationships where like, oh, I don't even want my partner commenting on like how good looking someone else is. And I was like, oh, for real? And they're like, not even celebrities. I was like, for real? Like not even celebrities? And
I'm that toxic, yeah.
Bro, that's shocking to me. Like I was literally
only because I wouldn't do it. Only because I wouldn't do it. So like I try to always make sure like if I have a rule, I can't. So if I'm like stop going to the club, I can't go to the bar anymore because like I can't tell my partner to not go to the
First,
club
yeah.
if I'm frequenting the bar, or like don't wear that. I can't pop out with a muscle tight
Sure,
shirt
sure,
if
sure.
I'm telling my girl not to wear, you know.
Okay, but hold up. Cause like I'll be chilling with my brother and his wife, and we'll be talking, and like my sister in law always says like she goes, oh, you know my dream guy, and I was like Thor, and she goes Thor, his man bun, his muscles, and my brother's like I look like Thor, and she goes you're bald, and I was like she got a point. She got a point. You're bald. And like, you can see Middle Eastern men always go bald. And then it was like a big, like,
Okay.
we're so comfortable with talking. I'm like, obviously you're not as hot as Thor, bro. Okay. Like, look at him. And then like, we'll all be talking. And it's like, yeah, why wouldn't we be able to have that conversation? But then, of course, we know that it's different than if his wife was like sliding to people's DMs, which she doesn't even, why would she do that? And then like, if he was talking to other people, like, they don't have opposite sex friends. So like my brother and his wife do
Right.
not have opposite sex friends. They have married friends and cousins and family members and people we know, which to me makes
Mm,
sense. If my brother came home and he was like, I have a friend who's a girl, I'd be like, no, you do not.
right.
But I have friends that are men because like, why wouldn't I? Because it's different. We don't have the same bubble. We're not the same couple. We don't do our relationships the same. My husband has friends that are
Mm,
girls. Obviously, he hangs out with them. Like they have friendships. Like that is it wouldn't even make sense to me, but like we don't even care about gender. This whole relationship doesn't even care about gender. We don't even care about it
that's
versus
rare.
yeah, well it's not that it's rare. I think it's that it's a bubble. And the bubble itself, like there's a whole bubble that's spread globally that doesn't give a fuck about gender as much. They just don't exist all usually in one place because we don't need to congregate together as whole communities. Whole communities that are religious though, they're gonna like fuck with those gender roles, right? And they're gonna have
Mm,
those expectations. Like my mom keeps telling me, she goes, I know you say you don't want babies, but I swear if you just stop working, you'll want babies. And I was like, no, that's not how it works. Like if I
yeah, that's
wanted
that's
babies,
word. That's horrible.
like if I wanted babies, I would stop working and have babies. Or like maybe I would have babies anyways. Like that's not stopping me from having babies, right? But it's this idea of like, well, maybe it's because you're not working within the traditional gender roles. And I was like, nah, the math isn't mathing. But it's an interesting instinctual solution from her, right? It's a bubble speak.
Mhm.
It's like, well, maybe if this. Okay. My point is, hold on, I don't want to lose my train of thought. Oh, I look at couples and how they lifestyle. Like same thing. My partner and I, we don't go to bars and clubs. I don't
Mm,
want to do that. Do we go bars here? A little different. There's some bars here that are like cafes with alcohol. So I do go to, I like those. Those are fun. We go meet as friends and we talk about anime. That's fun. But I don't want to go to a
okay.
bar. I don't want to go to a club. It's a lifestyle thing versus saying you can't comment on how someone looks or like it's fine. But I always wonder about those types of relationships. Like, are you saying you want your partner to lie to you? Because like my partner and I don't lie to each other, which means like if he has a thought or if I have a thought, like we just say it out loud. We're like, I'm so sorry. I got to say this out loud because I don't want to lie to you. But like, I'm looking at that booty right now. And like, we just say it. We're like, look on TikTok. I'm like, go back. I saw boobs. And he'll go back. He's like, and we're like, and then we'll keep going. Like,
Mm.
again, it's like, how do you not appreciate? But then it's okay if you don't either because if maybe you're religious or maybe, but what's your reasoning, I guess?
I noticed you use the word insecurity, and that's also a concern for me, but in the opposite sense, right?
Okay, tell me.
So, what if I'm dating a chick that has like a small ass, right? And maybe I see a chick with a fat ass,
Rip.
and I'm like, let's say I make a comment about it, right?
Okay,
Um, that could bother your partner.
for sure.
Like comparisons can be compare. That's where a lot of shit start. You start making those comparisons. That's
For
where a
sure.
lot of the shit starts to fester. And
Hmm.
that can bother your. That can make your partner can
But
start
don't you
like having
think
like
it's
sleep.
that's because they're insecure?
I don't. I honestly don't actually feel negatively about insecurity.
Okay, I agree with
So
you there
within
too.
reason,
Okay,
within
within
reason.
reason though, right? So, okay,
Yeah.
fine. Tell me what's your within reason because I'll tell you mine.
Okay. So if let's say like for some reason, let's say like for a completely innocent reason, a chick with like okay, let's say like for example, like my type is like white like thick white chicks. I don't know, that's just my type. Like
Sure.
let's say I'm talking to like maybe I'm dating a girl who's a little bit more petite. And for some reason, like a chick that's just like my ideals just talking to me for something unrelated to sex. If my chick runs down on me, what are you doing? Da, 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 that's negative insecurity. But if
Hmm.
I'm actively comparing her to this person and voicing sexual desire for that person, her insecurity in response to that is completely understandable. Which is why I
Totally.
would never be like that ass though, or my type is so and so, or that person's really attractive. I can't do it because that insecurity is pure. It's pure and it's innocent, and there's nothing wrong with it to me.
Sure.
And I don't want to. I don't want to feed that because it can destroy relationships and people. But if she's like trying to give me like a Mike Tyson combo with a spinning back kick because I had an innocent conversation, now we're talking about like some problems here. So like, you know what I mean? Like that's where I draw the line of insecurity.
Okay, toxic insecurity to me is something that ruins our joy, destroys our relationship, destroys you as a consciousness. Like it's eroding at your joy. Like, hey, bitterness, resentment, like negative words that like are coming from a place of insecurity where you're drowning in it. I'm not about it. Look, we all have insecurities. I have insecurities. I just don't want my insecurities to ever be the reason I destroy my life. So I want to be the master of my insecurities by acknowledging them and not growing attached to the fact that they exist, but knowing they're there. So like somebody in the comments said it pretty perfect. Fishy, you said comparison is so different from acknowledging a different trait, I think. Okay, so for me, I wouldn't compare. I wouldn't go to my husband and be like, "Oh, I'm so into this like aesthetic this guy has. Like unlike you, like you don't have that." Like that girl, first of all,
But it doesn't take that second comment though. And a lot of people, it doesn't. All you got to do is talk about how you like something that maybe the other person you're dating
Sure.
can't get immediately in that moment.
Sure.
And immediately, like the insecurity sets in.
For sure. So then one of the things that, going way back into the conversation earlier about what I did to prepare, what my husband did to prepare to be my husband was like, we didn't even know each other, right? So I always like to say, like, what were you doing in 2012? Like, what were you doing with your life, because we didn't know each other. He was preparing to be my husband without knowing it. He was like learning about his own insecurities, his own problems. He was fixing himself. So by the time we met, he could handle the fact that I was who I was. I am online. I am on the internet. I am on OF. I am doing these things. I am this person. And he had to be a person who could be so aware of his own insecurities that they would never become a problem in this marriage, and vice versa. I have insecurities and they're not going to be the reason this marriage fails. So we have a rule that we tell each other everything. And then we have a rule that we also warn each other if it's like, hey, I'm about to say something that might hurt your feelings. So we tell each other, I'm like, okay, I'm ready. And he'll like tell me, he's like, you have gotten fat. And I'm like, oh, okay, I thought so. And like, we'll talk about it. And it's really freeing to have someone you trust so dearly not to have bad intentions. See, the dilemma with insecurity is it could lead to you picking on your partner. It could lead to you picking a target that is your partner. And instead of fixing yourself, you tear your partner down. So I think the difference is like we're both so healthy that when we share, like, oh, I think he's really attractive. Or like, oh my God, I really like her. And I'm like, yeah, I really like her. Or he'll say like, we'll be looking at girls. And I'm like, do you think I could pull that off? He's like, no, your nose is too big. And I'm like, you're right. It's like him first acknowledging something that's very true about my life. Two, us laughing about it. And honestly, he just means it as a fucking fact. And there's something so relieving that versus him being like, oh yeah, babe, you could totally do that. Oh my God. It's like, don't lie to me, bitch. You know I couldn't pull that off. I don't want to be lied to. I would rather have complete transparency, but it's coming from such a good place. Rashad, the best place. He's the nicest, sweetest, most blunt person I've ever met. And I get all of him every day, all his inner thoughts to tell me the most honest truths. And it feels so good. So
maybe I'm soft. Maybe I'm just soft.
Maybe you're just young, bro. We're both in our 30s. To be fair, my husband and I are in our 30s. We've lived lives, But tell me, maybe you're soft. Tell me.
Because like the nose thing, like if I was dating a chick with like a prominent nose, I would never bring it up because I'm like, man, I don't know how this person's gonna feel. But now I don't mind it. Yeah. But this person, and they might not ever even like mentioned an insecurity about it to me. But like I'm always cognizant about like people's prominent traits. So like for example, you have curly hair. Some people are like insecure, like I wish it was straight. If it's not like a compliment, I'm not gonna mention anything about it because it's like, man, you'd never know. And it's like maybe I'm soft, but like for me, I just can't. Like I would like a partner that's like you, that understands like, look, my partner doesn't mean any harm. They're just saying the facts, but I can't bring myself to test that. Like, it's great
Fair.
that you're like so mature and you're so like, like out there and you're great. I'm not testing it. Like, I just can't bring myself to, because I don't ever want to be the source of like insecurity for my partner. I feel like insecurity
Yeah.
is a natural part of life that I never want to demonize, or like, or I don't think you're demonizing it, but I never want to attach anything too negative to it, unless you're like, you can't control it. Like, if you're like, I know you like da 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 da. It's like, well, damn, I ain't even said no. Like, I
Yeah,
haven't
yeah,
even
yeah,
said
yeah, yeah,
anything, and
yeah.
you're like a full on like assault. Like, we ride at dawn. Like let me like give me a minute to like, you know what I'm saying?
You don't want
But
it weaponized.
yeah, I never want to weaponize that against my
Same.
partner, and I don't want like my partner to weaponize. Like, they know I'm into something, like a certain trait or something, but I haven't like mentioned it or anything, and they're
Mm-hmm.
like, "But I know you." It's like, I'm with you, aren't I? Like, the fuck? Like,
Yeah,
well, if
yeah,
I'm with
yeah.
you, then obviously, like, but yeah, I can't bring myself to like do it, because I just feel like insecurity is one of those like it's one of those like innocent things, and I also know that women have oftentimes like you've heard of those girls like starving themselves because they feel like they're too thick or they're too fat.
For
And
sure.
I'm like, I never want like to be the reason why somebody's second guessing their like existence on a
For
day-to-day
sure.
basis.
But I think that's
So
really lovely of you. I think that's a really good. I mean, are you trying to flirt with my audience right now, ladies? He's single.
yo,
Like,
I mean, look, I just feel like, but I think it's also like a masculine trait to like be like, I don't want to use the word caring, but
protective.
to be like you could say protective, but also just like there's like a masculine aspect of caretaking, like when you're kind of like in a group and there's that one person that everyone can kind of like, he's understanding of everyone's concerns,
Yeah.
issues, like never really invalidating how people feel. Like, I feel
Mm.
like that's a really important masculine trait, to be able to walk in the room and say, okay, like, this person's really sensitive about this person really doesn't like that. How can I reasonably entertain and empathize with
Yeah.
everybody's hangups without enabling it too much, where it's like, okay, bro, like, toughen up, but
Yeah.
also not invalidating it to the point where they're drowning in their
Neuroses,
insecurities
like
and
in their
stuff like
insecurities.
that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but you're a unique case.
No, no, no. Okay, for the record, I grew up with a Middle Eastern mother, and she will never give you an eating disorder faster than like with her love. And then two, not that I've ever had one, but that's like the joke of Middle Eastern family. Shout out. Like they
Okay.
are so critical of you. My cousin comes up to me the other day, this when I was in America, and she goes, my daughter's mad at me because I told her she's getting fat, but look at her. And I was like, actually, bro, she's just like kind of big bones. Like that's a real thing. And like she got that body type. She's going to the gym
Yeah.
every day. She's skinny. She's just got that wide shoulder set, bro. And she goes, no, I'm trying to help her. She's fat. I was like, you're going to give your daughter an eating disorder, bro. And like we're talking
Yeah.
about it, but like I think that sometimes people don't know the difference between like telling the truth and telling what they think is the truth. So like, you know what I mean? Like in weaponizing insecurity. So like, okay, let me make sure this is really clear too. Since my partner and I don't. Okay, we like literally on New Year's, I looked at him, I was like, can we consent to getting 5 to 10 pounds heavier? And he was like, what are we doing? And I was like, we're gonna eat all of the food this New Year's. And he was like, I consent to this. And like we sat there and we
Okay.
just enjoyed New Year's, bro. And we did. We absolutely put on weight. And then we both were working on losing it. But it was one of those things where like we want to be fat and happy sometimes. Fat, happy, and mid, guys. That's the audience right here, baby. That's our new mantra. Fat, happy, and mid. That's us. And I'd rather be
Let me go
fat,
hit the hang
happy.
up button real quick.
No, 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 girl. I'd rather be fat, happy, and mid than miserable trying to like meet some standard I was never gonna meet. Okay, so I want to say the reason I can be this person now is because I spent my whole life like working on those insecurities. There were times, Rashad, listen to me. Not only did I hate my curly hair, I got in a fight with my mom and like when I was like in middle school because she wouldn't let me chemically straighten my hair. I was like, "Are you trying to freaking make me ugly on purpose?" I got in so many fights with my mom over my nose. I was like, "I want a nose job. Everyone's getting a nose job. I want one." And then I went in for a consultation and I was like, "Never mind. I'm probably gonna look ugly or my nose is too big. They're not even gonna do a good job. I'm not getting it." And then now I've spent all these years like learning to love my face and then realizing like, oh my God, who fucking cares, bro? And now I just hope I can breathe. That's all
Mhm.
I want to fix is this deviated septum. Everything else, who fucking cares, bro? But
Right.
I had to go through the motions. All of us have to go through the motions of fighting our insecurities, figuring it out. The other day on Instagram, I'll tell you the truth, I photoshopped my photos. But this last photo, you guys can go zoom in on my butt. I left my cellulite and I left my scarring in there because I was like, fuck it, it kind of looks cool. But I know for a fact some of y'all like take that shit away. And I actually think sometimes it just kind of looks like lightning on Harry Potter, like scars. And sometimes I want to show it off. But I know people, I had a partner once who went, oh, were you fat at some point? Because you've got like, those cellulite lines that show up in your body and they kind of look like lightning strikes. Okay. I was like, no, I've never been fatter than this. He's like, but you've got them all over your body. And I was like, oh, yeah, it kind of look cool though, right? And he was just like, I guess. And I'm sitting here having a completely different relationship with something that he's seeing as a negative. And I'm realizing, oh, society has a negative relationship with this shit. And then I'm like, should I have a negative relationship with it? And I started to doubt myself, like, oh, am I supposed to think this is ugly? And then I started thinking, like, oh, I don't like this. I was so afraid of my body at some point, I wouldn't even go to the beach without shorts and a t-shirt on. And now I am naked on the internet and at public parades. You're all welcome.
Okay.
This is a lot of fighting your insecurities because you don't even know if you're insecure about it or if the world has told you you should be. And mostly, it's the world. I don't even think we care. I think we care because of how it looks. I've had this pimple on my face for like a week, and my husband's like, damn, it really doesn't want to go away. I was like, it fucking hates me, bro. It's just living there. And I'm sitting there like, well, who's going to care? And he was like, yeah, for sure. Like, who in your audience is going to care? Nobody. But I know for a fact, 10 years ago, Brittany would have been so nervous about a pimple on her face. Maybe even would have not streamed for the week because of it. Can you imagine cock blocking your bag so hard because of a pimple? I've been there.
Yeah, I'm 23. I can imagine that.
I skipped school for a week because I had 4 huge whiteheads all like this on my nose. And a boy who sat in front of me in class was there, Richard, shout out. And I was so in love with him. And I was like, oh no, he cannot see my face. My mom let me stay home a whole week from school over a pimple. Shout out, mom. Shout out, mom. I'm just saying, like, I get it, but also things change.
I mean, I can relate. I have like a stretch mark that goes across my shoulder. It looks like a bear or something like attacked me or some shit. So it's
bear
like a really like aesthetic. Oh, get these bears out this chat, bro. So it looks like this like a scar with because my shoulders from a young age were always abnormally like wide, and then when puberty set in, they went all the way out, and then like the skin couldn't keep up, so it just started to like stretch. But I think well, for one, like I don't understand dudes that have an issue with stretch marks or cellulite. It's like I don't know, like dudes expect women to look prepubescent. What the fuck is going on? But I just can't bring myself to like I don't know what it is. Like I think it's also like benevolent sexism. It's also where it's like, man, like I know women take this stuff a lot harder than men do. I'm not going to bring this up. And it's also the aspect that it doesn't even like a lot of this shit doesn't even bother me. It's like, oh no, you have curly like hair, like it doesn't bother me. Stretch marks, that's natural.
Oh my god. The way I like can't handle people being insecure about their natural hair when I'm like, why? Who has taught you this? But then it's been taught to them. It's been ingrained in people. And I think I get frustrated for them because I'm like, bro, like it's so interesting the way you can like love people before they can love themselves, or they can love themselves before other people can love you. It's just like, what journey are you on? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but go ahead.
No, it's fine. Of course, you can always. So I was thinking about what you said in the sense of like how you and your partner are like so like straightforward and blunt about like this person's hot or that person's hot. I don't know, man. I feel like this is like hollowed ground with women. Like this is like one of those things where it's like you can't like I would never do it, but like I understand that like oftentimes if you compare, especially if it's a mutable trait, or is it immutable? Immutable is the ones you can't change, yeah. So if it's like or it can be mutable, but it's mutable to the detriment of the person. So like for example, it could be like a woman with like curly hair. Let's say she straightens it because the person she's with like straight hair. That's not her actual hair texture. And it just makes her day and her week more stressful trying to like change herself to acclimate to what you want. To me, like maybe I'm just too soft, maybe. But I do feel like there's certain insecurities that I'm like, this is safe. Like this is okay. Like if you're insecure about like your lack of this or your lack of that, I completely surrender like any comparisons. Like I won't bring it up. And there's also like the aspect of like going to the bar, going to the club, or how you dress. For me, like I just can't bring myself to hold my partner to a certain standard and then be like out like how the red pill guys are
For
like, yeah,
sure.
like I fucked 20 bitches, but she better be at the crib cooking up like whatever the case might be. I personally just if I actually like not even if I don't even if I'm not in love with that character with that person, I can't bring myself to like do that. So I don't know what it is, but like I am toxic in that sense of like don't wear that or like don't go there or like don't do that, don't like that or like don't say that. But I'll very much hold myself to that same standard. Does that
Mm.
make it better or does
Well,
that,
hold
you know?
up. Why is it toxic necessarily? Because one, I hear you being considerate. Two, I hear you being fair. Three, it's like, is it the place it's coming from that's toxic, or?
Well, I feel like it's like the temperature of society. It's like if you cuz like okay, if you tell the average chick I don't like my girl leaving the crib at like 9 p.m. to go to the bar. That never sounds like you could say like, "Oh, I would never go to the bar either. I'm a good." No one's hearing that part of it. All they
Mm-hmm.
hear is the first thing you said, which is my girl can't go XYZ place.
Mm-hmm.
So I acknowledge the fact that to a lot of people, that's like toxic. Like, oh, you got a problem with your girl going to the bar at 9 with her homegirls. It's like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, but I understand that once I say yes, nuclear bomb, genocide, like no one cares about anything else I have to say after that. Like, so I understand that it's kind of toxic in a temperature sense.
Well, it depends. Like, who, again, it goes back to like who are we talking to, right? Because in the bubble I was raised in, anyone who did leave the house past 10 p.m. was a red flag outside of your 20s. Because it's like, hey,
Hmm.
like, why are you leaving the house past 10 p.m.? Why are you leaving the
Even in
past
your 20s,
past
though.
8? Hmm.
Mhm. I'd say even in your 20s though, because it's like
Oh.
I think in your 20s you're mature enough to like tell your partner like, hey, this is a serious relationship. I
Oh,
see a
sure, sure,
future
sure.
with
If you're,
you.
I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
was thinking single and then partnered, but yeah, yeah, yeah. In
Mhm.
your partnership as well, I feel like again it goes down to lifestyle. When you're on a
In the
date,
sense of like, okay.
like I feel like if you're on a date, one of the greatest questions you can ask someone is like, "What are you doing on a Friday night at 8 p.m.?" Because like that's gonna be
Mm,
different for a lot of people. Now, some people might front and be like, "Oh yeah, I'm like out with the girls," or like I'm pretending I'm more social than I am. But if people are honest, they're like, "Honestly, bro, I'm just like wearing PJs and watching fucking episode 822 of One Piece." Like, is that
right.
cool? But then for some people don't think that's cool. So they front and they pretend like, oh, I'm out, I'm social. Like everyone's always lying because they want to look good
Mm.
to their partners. And I'm saying, what if you told the truth and got a partner?
And it's interesting that some women think that like being out and about is like attractive because like I will not lie, that's an automatic skip. Like when I'm on IG and I see her out with the girls at the bar, skip. I don't know. I just it's like it's not I don't look at it as like a bad thing. It just shows like okay, look, you're probably not going to take this as seriously as I am once we're together. Skip. I just it's my thing is like it's not the action in and of itself that's wrong. It's just
Right.
it's incongruent with a serious relationship. Like, bro, I can't be like at the crib uploading the 1 millionth video, 9 p.m. losing my mind, 1 millionth death threat of the night. You know what I'm saying? And then you're out at the bar with the homegirls, like doing God knows what. And as someone who's been to the bar and have I've seen what goes on with like I've seen engaged people and
Mm-hmm.
I've seen stuff happen. It's like I just can't be cool with that, even if people say it's insecurity. I just can't surrender this one. It's like I will die on this hill.
Look, it sounds like, okay, because again, when I say like, oh, I wouldn't date a girl who wore pounds of makeup, it sounds like I'm saying I think less of women who wear pounds of makeup, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I, Brittany, just realistically am not going to match or give that person what they need in a relationship because this isn't the kind of person in terms of categories that's going to be symbiotic, and I want it to work really well. I want it to be like a well-oiled machine. I want the only bump in
Hmm.
this marriage to be the things that happen outside of this marriage. Marriage isn't hard, life is hard. Okay?
Okay.
I want my marriage to be easy. Like my parents say their marriage is easy, and I've seen it in front of me easy my whole life. The only thing that was hard about my parents' marriage was life itself, not the marriage. And that's what I want.
Okay.
That's what I am working for. That's what my partner and I are aiming for every day. So for us, that means radical honesty. And for us, that means like having similar lifestyles. So even like his parents came over and they were like, "Hey, are you like keeping Brittany in this house? Like, doesn't she want to see Croatia?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm keeping him in the house right now, but also we're keeping each other in the house because we're both like this
Okay.
person. Like his friends will go out on occasion, but his friends are also introverted Croatians. So his
Mm.
friend group, that's so nice. They came to our wedding. It was so lovely. They also only want to see him every 3 or 4 months. Once a night, like for one bar night. That's it. And they go out to the bar
Mm.
and he sends me like little messages and I'm like, have fun. But their bars are literally like cafes with alcohol. So it's not like they don't go this, they don't do this, the clubbing. They're
They're just
nerds who
chilling.
just want to talk about anime. Yeah, like they're nerds. They're all nerds. I love them all. So like they're
Mm.
the sweetest group of boys. But like I don't have to go with him. It's not a girls' night. Like I'm good. You know, maybe if they brought their girlfriends, I'd show up. But like it's chilling. Okay, they go out. They go out every 3 to 4 months, maybe. Like that's just the kind of person I married. I married the kind of person who doesn't go out.
Mm.
His friends are people who don't go out. I do not go out anymore. So when I say like we were preparing to be each other's spouses, that wasn't our 20s. In our 20s, we were both going out. He was going out.
Mm.
I was going out. In our 20s, we were never home. We had to grow up to be people in our older age that was ready to be people who didn't go out.
Mm.
And I
I'm
don't
willing to put that on
know.
pause for someone.
Yeah.
I'll put that on pause for someone, but continue your thought.
So it's not even the age, it's just the time and era you are in your life. It's like, oh, I've reached the next era of my life. In this part of my life, I'm going to do this.
Okay.
My parents, when I came into their life, when they had me, were living at a beach on Seal Beach, going to the beach every day, hanging out in the water, great life. And then my parents were like, okay, let's do it. Went to the suburb, changed their lifestyle. My dad was in a band, in an Iraqi Middle Eastern band, played at weddings, drove a motorcycle. They settled their
Okay.
life. The moment they were like, okay, we're going to have kids. We're going to be like suburb people. Moved to the suburb,
Mm.
changed their life, focus on their career. My mom became a stay-at-home mom. That was it. Changed their whole life. And that's what I'm saying. Like you
Mm.
come into your life young and vibrant, partying, enjoying life. And then one day you're like, I'm ready to be a parent. I'm ready to be an adult. I'm ready to change my life. And if you're dating
Mm.
someone already, you better hope they change with you.
It's interesting because, like, sometimes I'm like, yeah, I'm ready to meet that one and like settle down and stuff like that. But then, like, it's that comparison thing where you start looking at like what life could be from someone else's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I'm like, man, like if this whole Rashad Crenshaw thing works out, I don't know why I said it as though I'm not me, but whatever. If it all works out, I don't know if I want to like I might want to drag this out for as long as humanly possible.
Sure.
I'm kind of like I definitely wonder like what's more. How do I put this in a way that makes sense? Um, how do you figure out? How would you go about figuring out which one is stronger, or like which desire is like more like rooted?
I would say life is little moments of time. And
Okay.
moments can last 5 minutes to a lifetime.
Hmm.
You pursue the one that gets you closer to your joy and keeps you on that track. And whatever you're
Mm.
doing in that moment, as long as it's joyful, it's the right decision. Not happy.
Okay.
Happy's an emotion that comes and goes. I mean, like deep
Okay.
seated joy, which by the way takes time to figure that out. So that's a journey. But you're following your joy. You're saying, ooh, like, if I do this, I'm going to hate myself tomorrow morning. We're not doing that. We're doing the thing that doesn't make me hate myself tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Okay. So I know if I take 4 shots of tequila, I'm going to hate myself tomorrow. Brittany no longer does shots of tequila. She'll do a different alcohol, but no more tequila. I always hate myself the next day. Always. Okay. So I learned that lesson, right? You
Mm.
do the thing that is going to lead you to your joy. And then when the right moment is happening or about to happen, you'll naturally pick it and it will naturally be the right choice. So even if you pursue and you say, I'm going to want this life to last as long as possible, it's going to last as long as it needs to.
Okay. Yeah, that's actually a really really good. The tequila thing made a lot of sense.
Girl.
That made a lot of sense. I haven't drinking forever, but nah, that still made a lot of sense to me. I'm still like, I'm still like figuring shit out and figuring out like how to properly like that's part of the reason why I watch a lot of your content is because I'm like,
Appreciate
okay, like philosophically speaking, like where the fuck am I going? Like what path is next? That's why the self-help guru, that video actually was like pointing to me because I'm like, okay, I kind of vibe and jive with this whole like toughen up, fuck the experts, fuck what the doctors say, and all these people that have spent decades, like, hyper masculine, tough
for
guy,
sure.
all this bullshit. But at the same time, there was that part of the video where it's like, okay, like, how do I make sure I'm not like destroying like the substance of me or like who I actually am at my core in this desire to like become the ultimate, like, I don't know, like Chad Alpha?
For sure. For
So
sure.
my my thing is like, what do you think about the concept of kind of like there's the philosophical aspect I was kind of like battling with, and that aspect was like, okay, what's wrong with kind of losing the old you? Like,
Mm,
it doesn't have to be like a mental illness. It doesn't have to be like something like radically toxic, but like, what's wrong with kind of like saying, hey, like that that version of me is kind of over with, or that's kind of done, or like I'm not really into that anymore. Because like when I was younger, I was a lot less sociable. I was a lot less liked. I was a
mm-hmm.
lot less concerned about where I was fitting in and stuff like that. And part of me sometimes wonders like, okay, like am I being fake or am I, cuz I know I'm not. Like I know this is just a part of growing. Like you're
Yeah.
not going to be antisocial forever. Like eventually you're probably going to want to make friends. You're not going to be on the game forever. Eventually you're going to want to go do some other shit. Is it necessarily wrong to try to seek a death of self and kind of like become something else, or like add in new pieces to make a picture whole? Like how would you say that the right way to do that is?
I well, first and foremost, I do think there's always a fundamental core of all of us. But I think you will
Mhm.
shed the top layer of yourself continuously. You will like I can't wait to meet Brittany at 40, 42, 42 specifically. I think she's going to be so cool. I don't know her yet, and I'm not her yet. Like there's
Mhm.
no way I'm going to be this girl at 42. I'm still going to be Brittany, but I'm not going to be this Brittany. And I
Okay.
cannot wait to meet her. Have you ever seen Fat Jordan Peterson?
Fat? No.
Go back and watch his lectures on YouTube. That man used to be fat. Okay? Fat
Okay.
Jordan Peterson is not the Jordan Peterson we have now. And he's
Okay.
60. You are always shedding layers of yourself. You are always transforming. You are always becoming someone new. My dad at 30 was not my dad at 40, was not my dad at 50, was not my dad at 60. And I saw all of them, girl. I witnessed my
Mm.
parents being my age and raising me. You know, my earliest memory is like 3 years old because my family, they forgot me at Big Bear Mountain in California. It's a ski like mountain. And they forgot me. They lost a kid. Me. They lost me. And an adult picked
Mm.
me up. A stranger picked me up. And I was like, man, I was about to be trafficked. But like, okay, like they lost me. And I sat
They
there and
returned you, right?
bro, let me tell you the fear on my mother's face when she finally realized I was okay. I had never been squeezed so hard in my life. But I will tell you, like, I have a vivid memory of watching my parents grow up. And I have to realize, like, they are us. We are them. Like, we're
Mm.
all just people on a journey. And I just happen to be a part of that story. But like you will be a version of yourself, like a changed version of yourself when you need to be because you have to be ready for it. When you can't force it, it's like perfect cell form. You know, you want to be perfect cell. You got to go through the journey, bro. You got to eat them androids. You know, you got to
Okay.
figure it out. You got to go on the journey. I just don't think life is complicated or simple. I think it's just simply complicated. It's a lot of patience and a lot of waiting. I think the right time to change is when you need to.
Mm.
And I think the wrong time to change is when you feel like you have to force it. But that's not
Okay.
the same as getting up and doing it when you don't want to. Getting up and doing it
Okay.
when you don't want to is because you need to do it, even though you don't think you have the strength. You have it, girl. Stand up and do it. Like you have it, but you have it because like that's your moment to like be that masculine self. You know, that Alex Hormozy guy, the guy I quoted in the self-help thing where he was like, fuck the data. That guy has
Mhm.
a quote that I really should have put in that video where he said, you know, the slaves. And I'm like, okay, let's see where this is going.
Where's this gonna go?
He's like, the slaves. He's like, I think about how they had to work every day, every hour, day in and day out. And if they can do it, I can do it. And I was like,
Yo, no. I
that's
mean,
my bro. Okay, look, this man is worth like $100 million. Do you want to be worth $100 million and say shit like that out loud? Because I don't want to be, girl. No one gonna quote me saying, you know what, the slaves, they worked. So
that
again,
is
he might say fuck the data, but I say, man, fuck your mom. Because like that shit's stupid. And I don't want to, I just shit's stupid, bro. No, thank you. I'd rather be, say it with me, kids, mid, fat, and happy, okay?
I'm not gonna lie, that those three words terrify me to death.
Tell me
That's
about it.
like mid number one, that means my life is over. Fat, that means my life is over. Happy, okay. But in conjunction with the other two, that must mean like the ultimate beta, like you know that thing from Spider-Man 3, the Venom thing, the ultimate like black
Yeah.
beta death creature has crawled into my ear and taken over and destroyed. Like if I'm fat, mid, and happy, something has gone horribly wrong. Now, in your case, that's different. But
Yeah.
like over here, like as a 23-year-old guy still trying to figure it all out, man, I can't think of like a decade, maybe in like my 50s when it's all said and done or some shit. But like
I
now,
I agree.
that would terrify me. Yeah, that would. But you're like you're kind of you seem more content with that happening sooner than later. Me, like I'm really like because I just feel like it'd be impossible to like to have that third thing to be happy if I was mid and fat because then I feel like people would treat you differently. It'd be harder to get like into relationships. I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Go into mid fat and happy a little bit more so I can understand the philosophy of it.
I think it's I think mid, fat, and happy is not a young person's game.
Okay, that explains my.
I think
That
when you're
explains that.
young, like you better fucking move, bitch. Like you better hustle.
Right.
You better do that shit because like you're not gonna have your energy in your 30s. In your 30s, you're gonna be humbled. You're gonna wake up and be like, holy fuck, without cocaine, I can't do anything. And like you can't be doing coke, it fucks up the cartilage in your nose, let me tell you. So like, not that I know from firsthand experience, I got a brother. And so like, let
Okay.
me tell you, okay, there's something about that that I think is so real. Like my audience is my age and older, and sometimes in their 20s, but mostly like they're people who are ready to be mid, fat, and happy.
Okay.
Because
That
they've
makes
spent a
sense.
lot of time stressing, a lot of time hustling, a lot of time like I think we're ready at some stage in our life. But man, I couldn't even tell you, Rashad, how much energy I had in my 20s. I do miss that like feeling of having it because I don't have it anymore. But I think you should use it, and I think you should use it to the best of your ability. And then I think you go through these curves. Like I can't wait till like set 40. I think I'm gonna be so
Mhm.
solidified in my career. I'm gonna have like this house, maybe. I'm gonna have this whole life that's gonna be very different. And then in my 50s and 60s, I'm gonna be a different version. And then in my 80s, I hope I'm a fat, happy grandma who fucking has fresh bread for the neighborhood kids, bro. Not literally a grandma, but you know, like an old lady who's got big
Yeah.
sagging tits like my nana did growing up. And like she always had fucking food and she was always sweating because she was always in the kitchen cooking. And when she would hug you, she would just smother you and you're like, oh my God. And like, I want to be so fucking unworried about my skin and my hair and my job. I just want to be able to make bread for the neighborhood kids before they go to school in the morning.
That's actually like I can't even argue with that. Can't even like that actually there's nothing anybody can even say like that actually makes total sense. I mean, honestly, this is gonna sound crazy, but I actually don't plan on being around for like 80. Like yo, I gotta
Why
be out of
not?
here by 80.
Why?
What? I'm just taking up space. Just breathing
Are you
oxygen
gonna
and
be?
shit. Somebody else could use it.
I plan to be an active old person. Are you gonna be a non-active old person?
The grave is pretty non-active, yeah. So, yeah.
You think you're gonna
So,
die before 80? You think you're gonna be a statistic?
Maybe. I mean, I just can't see what would I be even up to at 80. Like, I have bad memory at 23, bro.
My
At 80, like, what
grandpa,
am I,
my
you know?
grandpa till he was 102 was an active deacon in his church and sang hymns for the church. Every week was there.
Mm, I don't know. I'm kind of my only thing is like my memory's bad, okay? At
Okay.
23, my memory's bad.
Sure.
I don't want to even think. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to be Biden on steroids, okay? Like, I just like that's just not, you know what I mean? Like, well, on steroids might be the answer to me if I actually do end up losing my memory and stuff like that. I don't
Sure.
know, but 80 something, there is a novelty to it though. There is like a respectable like there is something to it where it's like, yeah, like to be, old and, wise and knowledgeable and to just contribute and contribute while you have your last few decades left. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like that makes total sense. I don't know, maybe I'm just too like
Young. You're
zoomer pilled
literally
or some shit.
22. You're imagining 60 years into the future. It's like so far from you right now.
Yeah, it's far away. It is far away. And it's also just the aspect of like so much of like what I imagine around being me is centered around like the YouTube stuff and like all
Sure.
the stuff that I want to get done that like I haven't been able to view myself through the lens of like living a non like entertainment lifestyle. Like
Mm.
to give you some context, I've always said like I'm like an eyes on the horizon kind of person. Like when I think I mentioned this like at the end of our conversation last time. I was like, you asked me, what do I enjoy most about existing?
Mm-hmm.
I think I
Mm-hmm.
told you that I've never once actually like appreciated existing in the moment. So like from like 12 was when I started thinking like, okay, like what am I gonna do with my life? I was always thinking like, I'm gonna make it, I'm gonna make it, I'm gonna make it, I'm gonna be this, I'm gonna be that. At first I wanted to do music, but then
Mm-hmm.
like that, like I never stayed consistent with that. Um, but people hit me with, you should like report news, like you sound like you'd be good at it, at least you should do that shit. And eventually jokes on me it happened, but I was always like thinking like when I was like 14, 15, 16, I'm not even paying attention to schoolwork. I'm daydreaming about being this like YouTuber, doing this and doing that. I am in no way, shape, or form in the moment.
Yeah.
So I've never once actually like thought of myself as a normal person doing normal shit, living a wholesome life. I've always been like high on this like not high, but like obsessed with like I've got to fucking get to this thing, which was honestly like so dumb looking back cuz like I don't even feel like I was mentally present for like my teen years. I feel like I was like in this time machine trying to like press all the fucking buttons and make that shit go. Um so yeah,
Can I
that was a
ask
ramble.
can I ask you like it's a very personal question, so you do not have to answer it.
Okay.
Can I ask you how you lost your weight?
So like I do not recommend this for the average person watching this. Disclaimer. Um I what I did was I went on this thing called caloriecalculator.com.
It literally is
This will
always up
save
on
your
my
life.
phone. I live on that
Yeah,
app.
this will save your life, okay? I went in there and I always tell people don't lie to the website, okay? It's just you and the computer. It's not gonna laugh at you, except maybe the FBI agent to the screen, but we'll forget about that. Just type in the truth. When it asks you how fat you are, just tell the truth. When it asks you how active you are, tell the truth. I typed all that in, and the website was like, bro, like if you want to lose 2 pounds a week, you're gonna have to hunker down. So I was eating like, not gonna lie, like a meal and a half a day, and I was running on the treadmill at like full speed for like 20 minutes,
Mm,
and I was in the gym lifting weights for like 2 hours.
yeah.
So like I was in there like doing the
The
fucking
2 pounds a
most.
week, that's extreme. Mine is 900 calories if I want to do that. 2 pounds a week.
Yeah, I went to sleep every night hungry. Like
Yeah.
not like deathly hungry, but like
Yeah.
I could like I learned to this is gonna sound psychotic. Like if I didn't feel like a little bit of hunger, like slight hunger pangs, I knew I ate too much. Like I knew like
Mm,
okay, I'm fucking up. Like okay. So whenever I would feel it, I'm like I'm on track. Like okay, like if I'm going to sleep feeling like I've eaten too little,
yeah.
I'm losing weight. And sure
Yeah.
enough, it fell off. So
I appreciate that honesty because I know that's difficult because I do. I have my numbers up all the time and I look at them. And I think it's really interesting because there's a lot of conversation about like I don't I don't feel like I have a problem with food. I feel like I have a deep desire to comfort myself with food, which is different, but also like I just
Mm,
love to cook
same.
and like girl, I can eat, let me tell you. So actually one of the ways that I've like made sure cuz I don't want to run into like an eating disorder situation. So one of the things that we've been doing as like a couple, and I don't know when this started, but it was really natural, is like we don't eat till 4 p.m.
AM or PM?
p.m.
PM? Okay.
Because we wake up late because I sleep. So I don't eat till 4 p.m. And when I eat like the biggest meal that I'm going to eat,
Mm,
like most of my calories. And then I have one snack basically after stream. And that's what I do. And like I've been eating so good though. I've been eating like potatoes because, like more food than calories type thing. And then like we have the thing in Croatia called cevapi. And I've been just making them into
okay.
patties and like so basically like a veal, like just pork beef. And like eating
Okay.
those and like I flavor it with so much hot sauce. So spicy. Anyways, it's fucking good. And then I get some arugula because I fucking love arugula, okay? And I just make this big
Okay.
ass meal and I've just been eating it. And my husband and I, we literally like high five. We're like, damn, we're geniuses, bro. This is so good. But it's like a conversation of like, I will have a hunger pain around like 3 a.m. And I'm like, I just want to fucking eat. And I'm like, sit
Hmm.
down and go to bed. Watch your TikToks and go to bed because I know for a fact you can't eat before bed right before there, girl. That's literally my crutch. I always want to eat right before I fall asleep. I just
Mm,
like, I always want to eat. And I'm like, I was doing that and I was gaining all this weight and I was like, I can't do that. So it's like weird to realize, like, without starving yourself, without technically having an eating disorder, you're just not giving into that craving of eating right before bed because that's my comfort. Like, I love to feel full before bed, which is
mm.
literally the worst thing to do. They always say, like, don't eat the first 2 hours before bed.
You can't help it.
Girl, I love eating before
No,
bed.
I get it. I get it. I mean, my thing was like, if I don't feel hungry before I'm going to bed, I have fucked up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, like I've had people ask me that question, like, how did you lose weight? Because like I'm always like, I wonder when like are they asking me for Ozempic or some shit? Like, are they, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't have
yeah.
it. I don't have the stash, but yeah, I mean, like, I was just honestly, it was the red pill content that really like shook me into like getting my shit together. I just was watching like
Mhm.
mad red pill content. And I was like, okay, I'm
Yeah.
fat in 21. If I keep this shit up forever, I'm fucked.
To be real, like I even today I worked out and I was like lifting weights in the window and I was like seeing the weight and like the window, my window makes me feel so good about myself because it has just enough shadow to make you think you have abs and it's like really nice and you're
I
like,
know what you're talking about.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I'm like, oh, this is literally that gym lighting versus home lighting. And I'm like sitting there and I'm like, I'm working out and I'm just sitting here like, I know you don't see the results as fast as you want, but just remember, like, it's never like that anyways. Like, it's never
Mhm.
as fast as you want. And I have to tell myself, like, do it anyways, and you'll look like lean beef patty. You'll have abs. You maybe will, or like, maybe you won't. Like, but I was like, you want thick thighs? Like, they save lives. Let's go. Like, I'm always just sitting here, like, let's go. And so, like, I'm always like, I have to tell myself, like, but I'm so impatient. Oh my God, Rashad. I'm just like the most impatient bitch ever. And I'm like, why don't I have, like, I'm literally that dumbass who's like, no, like, why don't I have it after one
Wait,
pump?
you're
Like,
actually like that?
like I literally,
I
I will do crunches for 20 seconds and be like,
Yo, you're crazy. You're I can't fault you for that though because my calves, I've been working on growing them a lot,
ooh,
and that's
nice.
actually a muscle group
Yes, it is.
that when you work them out, they do look bigger for a
Yes,
few
they
days.
do.
So if you're looking for your little fix, I can
Ooh, I'm gonna start that.
they will look good for a while. But I used to be
Anyways,
like that when I was like when I first started, yeah, I would like, about 10 reps. All right,
yep.
where is the vein in
Yeah,
my bicep? Is it there
literally.
yet? Delusional. But it's
Literally.
like at some point you kind of realize, I don't know when it was that I kind of realized it, like I had to just like it was when I don't know, it was like when I stuck to it long enough and I started to see the change, I was like, okay, it's going to take a little bit, but not
Yes.
that long. Like not as long as you think. So, yeah, I mean, I didn't get into that Ozempic bag, but I've noticed weirdly enough, a lot of people in my generation, I want to say like a lot of '04, '05 babies, a lot of like PED use is rampant. Like
Bro.
rampant in my generation, it's scary. I got lucky. I know people the black genetic whatever. It's probably true, but I got lucky in the sense that like even just on an individual level, my shoulders were always abnormally wide, my
Yeah,
chest was
yeah,
always
yeah, yeah.
abnormally big for no reason. But like I go into the gym and I see these kids with like veins going all up and down. Like I can tell they're on PEDs, and I'm like, you're destroying your
Bro.
estrogen, your test, your everything. What do you think? Do you think it's because we're seeing it mostly in young men? This like extreme amount of PED use. Have you thought about this? Do you know about this? What do you think about it?
Do you know Sam Sulek? Sam Sulek? Is that his name? How do you say
Oh
Sam's
yeah,
name?
yeah, Sam
Bro,
Sulik or what? I'm not
every time
sure.
I see Sam, my heart breaks. Just like as an older sister, like energy, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, why are we doing this? Like, my heart breaks for him. And then there's like, I watch these streamer boys and like I'll see them. I don't even know their names, but I'm like, oh my God, like the way these drugs impact their bodies. I'm like, for what? Okay, going back to that masculine discipline. I think the masculine discipline hopefully will encourage you to do things the right way. You would think that a
Mm,
healthy masculine relationship with yourself will teach you to do things the right way. I am so concerned. Even Ozempic, the way I'm hearing it's impacting people, like it is so It's a diabetes drug. I didn't know that. It's for diabetes. I didn't know that. So
interesting.
people using it for weight loss is like, yes, but that's not even like what it's for. So like the problem is like now we're seeing all of these consequences, and I'm like, bro, what? I'm sorry, I'm gonna say this out loud, and forgive me. Shortcuts, you get what you like. You get what you put into it. If you're gonna take shortcuts your whole life, you're gonna get what you've put into it, and hard work will always be better.
Mhm,
Good, strong, smart,
mm,
hard work will always be better. And I think that's my fear for a lot of these people, like in this like gym bro bubble or like in the gym bubble, is like they're always asking the girls too, like, are you on stuff? Are you on stuff? Are you taking natty or not? Da, 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 da. And some of these girls, I know they're lying. I know they're
some of
lying,
them are
bro.
on Anavar. Some
Bro,
of them are on
I know
Anavar.
that, and you know what's
Yeah.
crazy is like there will be like there's a guy, I don't know what his name is, but he came out and he's like, okay, I'm gonna tell you right now, I've worked with so many guys, they're all on drugs. And those guys that tell you they have fit bodies year round, they pre-take all their photos, they totally drop off, and then they come back, they're not even real. And I was like, I have to remember that too, because I look at gym people and I think, oh, I'm not why aren't I there yet, or what's happening? And I have to remember
Yeah.
like, oh fuck, like okay, because I
Yeah.
thought, you know what I mean? Even I fall into it where I'm
Hmm.
like, okay, okay.
That was a big part of like me not going too far was realizing, oh, I'm not slacking. I'm just not on drugs.
Bro,
That was the moment where I was like, oh, okay. There's also the appeal of like that hyper masculinity of like doing anything it takes to get there, even taking
yes.
like PEDs.
The ends,
And
what does it justify the means?
right, and it's almost worse than lying about it, because then the younger guys are like, "Oh, you're honest, you don't give a fuck, or you're just a bad motherfucker. You're on gear, you don't care, you'll tell everybody, you don't give a fuck." It's even more appealing than it was last time, because
Yep.
then it's like this symbol of like being a bad motherfucker. For me, in my case, I always hate saying it because it sounds so cringy, but like I got lucky in the sense of just like I just got lucky. Like I only worked out for 2 years and had like an abnormally big physique,
Yeah.
but I see guys who like they'll come to me and they'll be like, I've only been working out for like 2 months and look at me, and they're as big as me, and I'm like, dude, you're telling me you're on drugs without like you think I don't
Yeah.
know, but like you're telling me you're on drugs, and
Yeah.
they're younger than me, and I'm like, where is this coming from? Like, is it social media? Like, I guess it is. I guess people want to look like their favorite influencers, which I mean, like, I don't know why I'm saying it like it's like a weird thing.
They
What
want
would
the
be
dream
the
without earning the dream.
But it's even the thing is like it's just that a dream. You're never gonna be 10% body. Like I had a
Yeah.
guy like you should go down to 10% body fat. I'm like, and he was no, he said 3%. I'm like, and die? And die? Is that what you want me to be a corpse? Like you want me to
No,
die?
ma'am.
He's like, no, man, just 3% body fat. No, that's called death. That's called
Mm-mm.
literally death.
Mm-mm.
It's like it's not even a goal, it's a fantasy where it's like you do have to kind of at some point come to terms with the fact that okay, you being this lean year round with your Johnson working and you not feeling like you're going to die every
Yep.
day is impossible
Yep.
without taking these drugs. Do you understand that? And I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of it seems like more and more people, especially like people a little bit, I don't see as many people born in my year, like '01, '02, but like a lot of '04, '05 babies, like 17-year-old dudes coming in the gym, SARMs up.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm trying to understand, and I don't know. Maybe if this is a little too bit too far out of the wheelhouse, you can tell me. But um, I don't know. Like, what do you think is the philosophical like self exploration that it takes to like distance yourself from that?
So this goes back to fat, happy, and mid,
Shit. Yo. Okay, fat, happy, and mid.
right? Because fat, happy, and mid is about letting go of the attachment of being something
Mm,
that isn't worth the sacrifice and being grateful for what you have, which is peace. When you're fat, happy,
okay.
and mid, and again, not fat, happy, and miserable, not obese, risking fucking like heart attacks at 45, not mid, meaning like can't get up or do anything. I mean, fat, happy, and mid, meaning like this is a pretty good life. And you know what? I did okay.
Mm,
And you know what? I am in good enough shape. And I am good enough when it comes to my job. And honestly, like, my family's happy. I'm happy. Like, I did it. I am fat, happy, and mid. It's meant to represent the idea of letting go of this, like, fantasy of attaining something that was never for you, attaining something you thought would bring you happiness and it didn't, striving
mm,
for something that's going to kill you before you can enjoy it. And it's like,
mm,
okay, what is this? Like, what is this thing that we're doing? Now, again, I don't want people to think like, oh, fat, happy, and mid means like I've given up on my dreams. It means accepting the ones that were
okay.
actually meant for you. And I think
Okay.
that will bring people more peace than struggling to be someone they were never even meant to be or wanted to be. Not that I believe in like destiny, like this idea of determined, like it's determined for you, but I do think like what will be will be. And I do think like as long as you put in the effort, the like karma really does mean not you do good, you get good. It means what you put into your life is reflected back in your life. My life
Mhm,
is a reflection of what I put into it. And I'm really happy with what I've put into my life. I wasn't
mm,
always that
okay.
way, and that was a reflection of what I put into it. So fat, happy, and mid is like letting go of this attachment, right? Because again, I look at Sam and I look at these men and I'm like, stop it. Most women want a dad bod anyways, or want a version of softness that says to them, I love you more than I love how I look. Even men, don't you want a woman who loves you more than how she looks? In the superficial sense.
I get what you mean.
You know, not in the like literal sense, but in the superficial sense. Like in the sense where she is literally going to plastic her surgery, like herself up to death because she's so afraid of what she looks like. Same with men on these
Mm,
roids and men who are shooting themselves up. Like, God bless you. But like, how are you any different from the woman that gets 50 surgeries and then dies on the operating table? What are we doing this for? And I think it's
mm,
like an insecurity, but it's also like a meaning crisis, like as Vervaeke would say. It's like an emptiness within them that they're trying to fill with like, you know what I mean? With this aesthetic, which is you're not an evil person. So when I say it's fine, I'm just saying you're furthest from joy. You're moving away from your joy. And for what? You're not a bad person. You're just you're making a choice. And there's another
mm,
one if you want it.
hmm.
I'm not convinced people want it.
Interesting.
I just don't
That's
think
interesting. You
yeah.
always say that. You
Yeah.
always say that.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like saying it's like when Fresh and Fit say, "I'm sitting here telling you how to do it, and most of you won't do it because you don't really want it."
Mhm.
I feel the same way about my work.
Mm,
And by the way, when I listen to Fresh and Fit say stuff like that, I'm like, they're right. They don't want it. They don't want it because people don't. They want to hear people talk about it so they can fantasize about doing it, and then actually watch Fresh and Fit do it so they never have to.
like living vicariously through the person.
Bro, it's good enough. It's good enough for most
Mm.
people.
Maybe it's the. I think it's the exact same thing you said. Maybe it's the same thing of like getting a bunch of surgeries, hopping on a bunch of gear because you're afraid to confront yourself, and it's maybe the exact same thing of doing nothing at all is coming from the same thing, being afraid to confront yourself. Because
For
I
sure.
think that's what it was for me too. Was I was afraid to because it's easy to be like, oh my god, women ain't shit, or these women, these women, these women, but it's a lot harder to be like, okay, why is Rashad not successful with women? Why
Mm-hmm.
why is it that when I wake up and look around, everyone else is killing it, but I'm not? Like, what's going wrong? Yeah, I think there was a lot of like fear of self-confrontation,
Yeah.
but I'm also curious as to what separates those people from people who never get there. You don't believe in you don't believe in predetermination, right? Do you believe
No,
in more?
I believe like I already think I always tell my husband, I was like, man, we've had a really good life. And he's like, it's not over. I was like, we're already dead. As far as I'm
Mm,
concerned, like I'm not worried about death because it's already happened. But I know because it's always gonna happen. So I think like spiritually, I do kind of have this belief of like it's already happened, but it hasn't happened. So I don't think like it's not it's whatever will be, but I don't know if it's determined so much as like it is what it was always gonna be anyways. But I think you have like in
mm,
your micro life, I think you have the ability to change your future. But in terms of like you don't have
mm.
the ability to foretell the future.
I know what you're trying to
You know what
say.
I'm
Like, are you
saying? Like
saying like you have your factory settings, but then you have shit you can kind of like build onto it. You can make these like minute changes as time goes on, but you are who
exactly.
you are.
You are who you are and like it is what it is. Like I will always be the like I said, my face, my body is as if my personality was manifested into this like form. I couldn't have looked different.
Mm.
Imagine I was like a 10 model with fucking like a million followers on IG and I was sitting here with you and I wouldn't be having the same conversation with you.
Yeah, we wouldn't.
This
Yeah, it'd
wouldn't
be
be my
different.
life. But my life is this because it's exactly what makes sense for this person that I was. This body I
Hmm.
was given and this life that I chose. Like, oh my god, okay.
So you
This
think that's like a combination of circumstance, or do you think it's like more so like maybe like a little bit of because like I was watching this Drake interview because
mm,
like I studied the music industry to like figure out how to navigate like just entertainment in general.
yeah.
And he was like, I'm being guided by something else above me. You know the Illuminati people like it's the devil. I think he's trying to say like I think something up there is pushing my story
Mm.
further and like interfering for me and like making things work. When you say this body and this personality and this face and everything comes together to make like the right or at least like a combination that makes sense, what do you
Mhm.
think that's coming from?
If I'm being really honest, I think I take more of a biological conclusion, which means like I imagine myself more like a creature on a planet and like I'm just a bear living my life and like I'm gonna do
Hmm.
what a bear does, and like I'm a human, and I'm gonna do
He's
what
a
a human
bear.
does. You know what I know? We love bears over here. We're like obsessed, bro. But like, it's only because they all want to fight me, and I just gotta mention it slow key so they can hear it. Um,
Okay.
but I think like I am this like biological creature. I'm a combination of my genetics and my relationship to the environment. And so like we're
Mhm.
always like reacting to our environment and then having a relationship with it. And then I couldn't have been someone different. You know what I mean? But I also
Mm.
can add and, like I can change my avatar if you want to go video games. Like I can change my character. It's like a game of Rust. You show up naked with only like a stick, like a fire stick, if you've ever
Okay.
played Rust. Okay. And then I sat there and I started
Mhm.
collecting tools to like, make my life work for me. I just think that I don't believe in a god, but I do think
Okay.
there's just like if there was like the thing I love about the concept of a god is that like he knows the end and he knows the beginning.
Okay.
He knows the things that are objective even if we don't like it. I think that concept is something that I do believe in without there being a god. Like I think whether I like it or not, there is an objective. I just don't think we have access to it because of our perception. I think there is an
Okay.
ultimate objective, right? Whether we like it or not, like life's going to be what it is. But in the meantime, on the micro, I can still decide what to eat for dinner. I can still decide who to marry. And I seem to have
Mm.
control over a lot of little things in my life that make up a really big part of my life. you know?
Okay.
And again, like you can look at it from a biological standpoint. I have fibromyalgia. When my doctor diagnosed me, he told me, hey, just a heads up. Either people give up on their whole life and just become like they just give up on everything, or they work out every day and they figure it out. And I was like, okay, well, I can't give up on everything. I'm too busy. So
Right.
I fit into that
Right.
category. But I don't even know that I did that. I just know that I'm that person. Like Brittany doesn't just give up.
Mm.
So, like, how much of that was biological and how much of that is me making that decision? Yes.
Mm. Okay.
That's what I
I
mean.
get.
So some
Okay.
people say God is guiding me. I just say like I'm doing what else could I do except be best? What else can I do
Hmm.
but be Brittany?
Okay. That makes
That's
sense.
what I mean. So like I don't believe in God like Drake, but also who could have been Drake but Drake?
Right. I mean, it's the
Who?
person that makes the star, not the star that makes the person.
Yeah.
Because
Like
like you can't. Yeah.
Andrew Tate's the only Andrew Tate.
Yeah.
He's the only one. There's no
which is
one
a
else
good
like
way of
Andrew.
looking at it.
Yeah.
Because if you got to have faith that you're enough to fill that role, because like you can't you don't want to like it's kind of goes back to what we were talking about like 5 minutes ago, where you're kind of looking at what everyone else is like and
Mm.
feeling like you have to meet that, not realizing that it's not the Instagram followers and stuff that makes the person. It's that individual who being themselves acquired all of that in the first
I'll
place.
tell you this: if I
So
gave someone else's if I gave Sneeko Andrew Tate's platform, if I gave anyone else Andrew Tate's platform, there's a reason he's Tate and they're not. So having a dream of like, I want to be the next Andrew Tate, I was like, is Andrew Tate dead? Because he's Andrew
you
Tate.
got facts.
So you know
Right,
what
there's
I
only
mean?
one.
Like everyone wants to be somebody but themselves.
Mhm. Where do you draw that line of like inspiration or deriving um a sense of advice or direction? Because I look at a character like Sneeko and I feel like he took a little bit too much from like everyone. Once he started to really blow up, he took a little bit too much from Zorka, a little bit too
He's
much from
very open-minded, our
Fuentes.
Sneeko.
A little bit too much from I
Yeah.
say that ironically the one person he didn't listen to was Destiny. Um it was interesting. Where do you draw that line of like absorbing things from the people you look up to? Have you ever done it before?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. First of all, I'm a big proponent of mentors. I think they're great.
Okay.
I'm a big fan of
Mm,
elderly. Like I'm a big fan of my elders. I think like I seek wisdom from my elders all the time. I grew up in a culture that like really respected the patriarch of the family and the matriarch.
okay.
Like you went to your grandma and grandpa for advice. Like I really admired my grandparents, like God rest their soul. I really admire my parents. I go to my parents for advice all the time. Like I even though we differ religiously and all that stuff, like I still trust them to know what they know. And they know a lot.
Mhm.
They know a lot. They're just like little beacons of wisdom. And so, even though I share all the funny stuff, guys, okay, all the funny stuff that doesn't seem very wise, they got a lot of wisdom. And I think that is the key is seeking the wisdom. And so, I think when you lose yourself and wanting to be someone you're not, whether it's a mentor or a god or a belief system or an ideal, whatever, then you're
Mm,
moving away from your joy once again. And you're not going to be
mm,
happy. You have to figure out who you are. Introspection is about you. Who are you? Not who do you want them to be or who do they want you to be, not who do you want to be for them. Who are you? And that's a much harder question to answer. So I think like I'm a big fan of mentors. I'm not a big fan of copycats.
mm.
I'm a big fan of individuality. I'm not a big fan of ego. Nobody gets
Mm.
anywhere alone, and no one should sit around and wait for other people to do it first. And it's
Where do you
like,
draw the line of ego?
well, your ego will draw the line for you and you'll hit the wall and then you won't
Yeah, that's
succeed.
yeah,
You know?
that's very true.
Your ego is
It's
your cock
very
block. Your ego is the cock block. Pride and
mm,
ego, they're sisters and they're fucking. Okay?
mm.
Like, and incest is not a wincest. Okay? So stop. Like, we're done. I'm so funny, guys. I'm so funny. Anyway.
That's a way of putting it.
Okay? Like we're done. Incest is over. The Bible's done. We're over it, okay? So, I think that I have pride in my work. I think it's really good. The pride,
Mm,
I try not to root it in my ego, but in the work I've created. I have
mm,
an ego. It represents the id, me, Brittany. I know who my consciousness is. It will not be the reason I trick myself into thinking I'm better than I am. That's why
mm,
my husband has to be honest with me. Because everyone on this planet keeps telling me I'm either better or worse than I am. And I need somebody other than myself to tell me how it is. And I trust him to be very honest with me. Okay.
mm.
Everyone else tells me, oh my gosh, you're doing great. Oh my God, it's so perfect. I'm like, shh, get out of here. You don't know what you're talking about. Next.
Right.
And then everyone's like, you're not shit. You haven't done anything. I was like, girl, I make more than you. Move over. And I was like, you, husband, tell me what it
Okay.
is. And he'll tell me what it is. And it is real. I know it and I can feel it. I'm like, the data and the evidence makes sense. You have both emotionally made me feel secure and you've given me the evidence to know you're logical and not just saying it because you're fucking me.
Mm, okay.
It's like that. Because you know how your parents talk you up because you're their kid, but also tear
Yeah.
you down because you're their kid.
Yeah.
Okay, my husband
Mhm.
neither has to talk me up because I'm his wife, nor tear me down because I'm making more money than him.
Mm.
We do not do that. We only we're like what is this? Like when you're military, like when you're going up the wall and you reach down to help your comrade up, we're doing that. If I'm further, I pull him. If he's further, he pulls me, and we are on the same
Okay.
page. We are the only people keeping each. So again, like ego and pride. If he had ego and pride, he would have been upset that I made more money than him.
Mm.
If I had ego and pride, I would have discontinued wanting to be with him because he didn't make more money than me.
Mm. Okay.
Because when I go back into my bubble where I grew up, the question is, when are you going to quit your job to be a wife? And my question back is, who said that was the plan? Because I don't belong to this bubble. So I understand the plan for you guys and I love that for you, but like, it's not my plan. So
Hmm.
ego is great and pride is great unless it's toxic. And you'll know it is because your life will reflect it. Just a reminder, RIP to Kevin Samuels, but he didn't die with a wife in his arms. He didn't die surrounded by family. And I think that sticks out to me. I want to die knowing that I, one, had no regrets, and two, somebody loved me deeply. If it wasn't just myself, the people around me. And sometimes I think about him dying and I'm like, he died in a hotel room with a lady, right? That's very nice. But also, I wonder if that's the way he would have wanted to die. And I don't know. I don't know him. But I hope he
That's
didn't
a
have any
pretty good
regrets in
point.
that moment, you know?
Yeah, that's a good point about trying to figure out what your end like destination is. Like I know for the next 10 to 15 years I want to be like Rashad Crenshaw. That's the ideal for the next 10 to 15 years. But I do know for a fact that there has to be like, okay, party's over, drinks up, everybody go home. I'm very well aware of that in that aspect. But I also have been kind of like tinkering more with developing a stronger sense of ego in a healthy sense of
Like confidence?
I guess you could say confidence, but also like there is a certain level of ego death, but also ego growth. You have to have that perfect balance in order to succeed in a space like well, in any entertainment environment because you're putting out art or you're putting out opinions or you're putting out something,
Like you want to
and
believe
then
in
you also
yourself.
yeah you want to believe in yourself, but you also want to kind of have a maybe even a I don't want to say worship of self, but you want to take yourself seriously
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
and yeah, for the last 2 years, I've been doing that a lot less. And I'm kind of actually on some level kind of content with that because now I'm kind of pushing a little bit against it and trying to find this middle ground where you're not, so timid and so like not confident that you're not willing to take your space and take your spot. But at the same time, not so egotistical that, like you said, you're cock blocking your own blessings and stuff.
Yes.
So, that's kind of where I've been moving. But
I think that's a great journey. I think that's a very difficult one too, because again, it requires like patience, and you have to like let the change happen. So how do you, I guess, how do you deal with the need to be patient? Are you a patient person?
depends on what the situation is. So if it's like if it's like I said with like the I don't want to say the booty bandit, but like the bed sheets bandit.
Yeah.
With him I was patient because it was a
I know how he meant.
um
Okay.
yeah, with him I was patient because it was a confrontation. So I was very like, okay, what do I do? Because now we're involving like pink eye and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So I was very calm. I was like, okay, where are we going with this? But
Oh,
anything non anything outside of confrontation, I'm not patient actually. I'm someone who's very much like, is it done yet? Is it done yet? Is it done yet? Not verbally or like outwardly, but in my head I'm like a
yeah.
million miles an hour. Is it done yet? What about you?
Um. Well, I feel like I have a very patience really is like I'm it is my greatest life lesson. I'll be learning it till the day I die. Genuinely.
Hmm.
I sometimes run into loop thoughts of like, you're better than this, make it happen. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like I can control everything. Like it feels like a little bit like a control issue where you're like, why can't I
Hmm.
control everything? Why isn't it working on my timeline?
Okay.
And then my mom's voice comes into my head and she goes, nobody's timeline matters but God's. And I'm like, okay. And so I'm like, what's God's timeline for me? And again, like, I grew up religious for a long time. I was like I really believed in the Catholicism for a really long time. And I
Mhm.
think that I take a lot of that wisdom into my life now where I'm like, it's not about my time. It is about like God's time or whatever you call it. It's about
Yeah.
realizing like this is the life lesson the universe is teaching me is like, okay, like what a great opportunity to be patient. What a great
Mm.
opportunity to be disciplined. Like, oh, I want to be disciplined. I want to be this badass. I want to go through training. I want to get hit with a stick on my abs and be like, I could take it. I want to brag about how big my muscles are, but I don't want to learn the discipline to do it. I don't have the patience to do
Mm.
it. It's like I question myself and I tell myself, is that your ego and your pride telling you you're tougher than you are? Or like, do you have the evidence to back it up? And that
Mm.
evidence is like, it's like a circle, right? To get the evidence, I have to be disciplined. To be disciplined, I have to actually be motivated. To be motivated, I actually know why I'm doing it. To know why I'm doing it, I have to
Mm.
introspect and actually know myself. To know myself, I have to live a life that tells me like, who am I and informs me of like, oh, remember when you did this? Like, this is why
Mm.
you did this. Or this is why you know what I mean? So I think for me, I take it as an opportunity to figure out how it's all connected and how, like, a decision I made, I've been thinking about this lately. Like, what decision did I make 12 years ago that brought me here? And I didn't even realize it at the time. Or how about the time,
Mm.
like, I even heard my husband's voice for the first time. And all I thought was, like, oh, I really like this person. And, like, I really like their brain. And, like, I really want to talk to them again. Not knowing, like, you're about to move to Europe, you American bitch. Like, I live in Europe. I, in my early 20s, during 4th of July, would deck out my car in red, white, and blue, drive through Southern California, raging country songs about America. I cry when I hear people sing, like, you know what I mean? Like football games, when they're doing the anthem, I cry. I played Post Malone's version of the anthem for my partner. I was like, is this not so beautiful? He's like, all I hear is propaganda. I was like, shh. I was like, I am so like American sometimes in my brain that I like literally started getting emotional. And now I live in Europe. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just think life is about preparing yourself for your destiny.
Hmm. So like, have you ever had your ego or like pride, like, cause like that, I don't want to say it was completely comprised of ego and pride, like my little fist fight in the army, because it was definitely an aspect of like, there was an aspect of like, look, like I'm not gonna have my masculinity tested in here, broken ankle or not. Like
Mm.
when you're surrounded by 50 degenerates, you have to like a line has to be drawn somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I feel like there was an aspect of like pride and ego leading me into something
For sure.
that kind of had to happen. Have you ever had your pride or ego lead you into something where you were like, okay, this was a necessary journey? Because I feel like we oftentimes demonize these two things, but at
Oh, yeah.
times they can also open up little lessons.
Just a reminder that I'm a YouTuber for a living.
Okay, that answers that pretty much gives a pretty it's like the ultimate answer right there.
Hey, you guys know who you should listen to? Me. As a YouTuber,
I
you are literally saying, "Can I have 3 to 6 hours of your time every day?" Oh, and that's just the stream. Can I also have 3 more hours for my clips? Oh, and if you
mm,
pay for my Patreon, can you also come to my Discord events? Oh, and if you're really dedicated, do you want to talk to me one on one?
okay.
YouTubers, like ultimately, we do have to have some fucking part of our brain that thinks we're worth listening to.
Facts.
Whether we think we're funny or pretty or entertaining, like why you and not the other 100 makeup bitches? Because you, for some reason, think your eyeliner is better than other people's eyeliner. Or you think it's more fly, or you think like you figured out a formula. I used to, when I was obsessed with like makeup YouTube, oh my God, I would watch how to put on mascara, like 100 different YouTubers. And my partners at the time would be like, how many of these videos can you watch? I was like, it's not for the mascara, it's for the YouTuber. It's their personality. It's their input. Why did I watch that Fresh and Fit versus H3 times? Well, I wanted to know Tom's
Yeah.
opinion. Then I wanted to know Papa Gut's opinion. And I wanted to see me replay it. And I was like, I'm doing pretty good. And so, like, you're sitting there, you watch people because they're an individual person with an opinion. You want to know. When I get a commenter, I doubt myself sometimes. Rashad, I will say, oh, I'm not gonna cover that. Like, nobody cares. And then people will be like, Brittany, everyone else covered it. We need your opinion. Hello. And I'm like, oh, I forget that my audience and people in the audience also are like me. And they're like, hey, we got 10 other opinions, but we need one more. Let's go. And I'm like, oh shit,
Right.
you know what I mean?
Mm,
And so I think
okay.
like ego and pride led me to believe and led my father to believe when he was like, you should start a YouTube channel like I Justine. I was like, I Justine, could I be a YouTuber? And he's like, you should be a YouTuber. My dad had enough pride and ego in his daughter. They're like, you could be an entertainer. And I was like, I could be one because I wanted to be a radio host. I was like calling into radio shows all through high school. Disney, Radio Disney. My first skateboard, Dragon Ball Z. My first backpack, Dragon Ball Z. My first lunch pail, Dragon Ball Z. Like in terms of anime, like they hooked me up. I would
Okay.
call in, win all the contests, so like a 12-year-old. Okay. Then I got older and I was on talk radio shows all the time. I was like, hi, Rush Limbaugh. I want to tell you something. I think I'm smarter than you. I'm 19. And then like I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh, hi, this person. Oh, hi, this person. It's the same thing when I see panelists. I was like, look at us. We all think we're so smart. Like we're all just like little introverts who sit on our computers all day and half of us are virgins. I love this for us. Like,
Yo.
and that's ego that brings us here, bro.
That is true. That is true. My story was not so my way into YouTube was a lot more like luck, like a lot
Yeah.
more like chance based. Yeah, it was like
Did
if I
you?
didn't break my ankle in the army.
Oh yeah. Okay. Tell me. I'd love to know.
Yeah, if I hadn't broken my ankle, I'd say I'd still be in the army until 2027 or 6 or
Damn. You signed up for 8 years?
yeah.
10 years? Wait, 10 years?
So I was supposed to go to college. I did some stupid contract where I was gonna be in I think it was 8 years. So I probably would have came out in like 2025 or
Oh
6 or something. So,
damn.
but I would have been in for way too long looking back now.
Oh my god.
But yeah, I mean, it was by chance. I broke my ankle. Found a way to come home when the Army National Guard was fighting to keep me there, like tooth and nail. Like you're never coming home. Made it home. Went to college. Was sitting in like a parking lot at Chipotle, not doing my
Oof. I miss
schoolwork, not
Chipotle.
doing anything. Yeah, and I got like a Snapchat text from a high school friend. You want to come do this podcast, bro? And then that was literally just it, just by
Shut
chance.
up.
And then like, so I
That's
mean, I don't
beautiful.
know. That's kind of like why sometimes I'm like maybe this is all supposed to be happening because I sometimes like I do what's the word like when you're like eating something you're not supposed to eat or you're like doing something you're not supposed I do like indulge in like
Mm.
like higher power
Yeah.
thoughts, but yeah, that's just my little scenario.
I
But
think that's
I don't-
interesting. No, I think that first of all, I do think you're meant to be in this space. One, I've noticed that I take bets on people's careers for funsies. That's why my audience knows we check into certain YouTubers. Like yesterday, we checked into Gabby Hanna. I was like, let's see if Gabby's changed. And we check in, and we're
okay.
gonna do that with Rashad. Let's see if Rashad ended up anywhere. Let's see what he did with his life. Like we are gonna check. And
God.
I'll tell you this. One time, I was struggling in my life in 2012, and I asked the internet for money. It's like it was a time, let me tell you. And the internet came through,
Okay.
and I got like 10K. And one of the it changed my life. Thank you so much if you were back watching then. It literally transformed my whole life. It brought me here. And one of
Mm.
the guys gave me $1,000. And he was from Saudi Arabia. And he wrote me a note and he said, I can't wait to see what you do with your life. And I will never forget that. I don't even know who this person is. I just don't even know who this human is. So if you're still in the audience, hello. But when that message will be ingrained in my brain forever. I can't wait to see what you do with your life. And I was like, oh shit. And like a part of me is like, I better do something. And like another part of me,
Embrace it.
I know.
Embrace
And
it.
then another part of me is like, I also wonder what people will do with their lives. Like I know
Mm.
I joke, I know I mention anime a lot, and I know it's so lame, but it's not lame. It's the best thing ever, and only cool kids watch anime, guys. I don't know if you heard. And when I think about anime and I think about like why do we fantasize about those stories? Like, oh, if only I was Luffy, man. If only I was Goku. If only I was Vegeta. And I'm like, but aren't we kind of though, like a little bit, but like without the Super Saiyan powers? Like, aren't we just like little kids in a village, like and like figuring out our lives? Like, aren't
You're,
we all just like
yeah,
little,
you're a
you know what I
fool.
mean? Like, you know what I mean? Sasuke over here, okay?
Yeah.
Like, aren't we all just like living our own little dramas and like, and then we're deciding like what to do with them? So my brain is like, okay, what if I did something that I wanted to do for me? So then I asked myself, like, okay, if I was like on a desert island, what would I do? What would I want to do with my life? And that's a very hard question to answer. I think it sounds easy, but I think you would
Mhm.
surprise yourself if you really ask yourself, like, okay, it really is just me. With everything I know about myself, what do I want to do? your family's somewhere else. Let's say I put you on a forest, or I put you on a desert island, or I put you in the middle of the ocean. Like, you could do anything. You could do anything with your life. It's like, what would I do with my life? Like, what would I want to do? And this like exercise really led me to figuring out like my joy. And once I figured that out, you know, life's easy. Circumstances are tough,
Okay, that's interesting.
you know?
Hmm. Okay, so I don't want to drag you on too long. So you always let me know whenever, things need to wrap up.
Soon,
But
soon-ish. It's 12,
um
it's almost 12:30 here. So soonish for me, maybe. I don't want to give a time limit, but like sooner rather than later.
okay.
But you tell me if there's anything
Um
more on your mind. I want to hear it.
hmm.
Because the flow's been good. People have been loving it, and I appreciate you guys staying this long to watch. And I put the link to your channel in the chat, but I'm gonna put it in again just in
Oh,
case you guys forgot.
I mean, I appreciate that
Yeah,
always,
go subscribe. Thank you.
I would go live, but as you better than anyone else would know,
Tech.
what I'm saying, struggles. Well, it's
Yeah.
the lack of a second monitor. Once I have that, I'll be
It's
good to
hard.
go.
It's very hard without
Mhm.
multiple monitors. Like, genuinely, like that. Until I got a third one, even I was like the whole thing is covered. Like every single screen has 1,000 things open on it. How do you feel about the convo?
Mm. This one was really good. Like I
Yeah.
thought the last one was good, but this one was a lot. This one was like way better.
Yeah, I agree.
I, I'm kind of glad we didn't cover like the Aiden one because
Oh my God.
the
God
the
bless
Aiden
him.
Tate
Little bro,
situation
bro.
because that was I actually want to watch you solo talk about that.
Bro.
Um,
He's
do
just,
you think you could do it?
yeah, maybe I thought about covering it, and then I was like, I don't know, but there's an Aiden thing that I do want to cover, so maybe I'll just mention it like as I do the video. But it's interesting to see somebody that just like feels so little brother to me play with big kids who are making very big decisions about their life. Like
Mhm,
Andrew Tate is not in the like Aiden is not in league with Andrew Tate. Like they're not in the same league. They're not playing the same games. But I
mhm.
think Aiden is convinced he wants to, and I think he's too good for those games.
Oh, you think he's like a good like he's too good of a person to be like involved in that?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people take that the wrong way.
Yeah,
A
well,
lot of people are like, "What are you trying to say?" Like, you know what I mean? Like, for some people, that's a little. But I understand what you're saying. Like, Aiden is definitely. I think he's just having a read the room problem. Because people say he's dumb, but I just think it's a little bit too much. Like, uh, what's that fucking word they use? Like, too much. He's eternally on. Like, he's just online so much that he's kind of like forgot. Like, you do know your buddy's fighting charges, right? Um, but yeah, I actually do look forward to watching you cover that one solo
yeah.
because I feel like it'll be a funny one to talk about. Is there anything you were curious about?
I feel like you did really good. Actually, one thing I'll take note of that you told me about the first time around, and I felt like you were doing it this time around, which was actually really nice. Is one, you ask really good questions. Two, I
Mhm.
wasn't sure if you were doing that to switch the attention onto me and off of you, or if you were doing it because you are just considerate and don't want to like take up the whole space.
It's very much paranoia about like being like too like am I like I'm on this person's show, I'm talking a lot like and plus like I've always noticed that it always feels good when someone is like, "Well, what about you?" You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So like I've built up a habit of always trying to like turn it back to someone like, "Hey, like what do you think?" or like how does this relate to you?
Yeah.
But no, that's actually a good idea. Whenever I find myself in a tight one and I need to like and I need to escape, yeah, that's a good idea. But no, I watch I tune into your lives like every other day. Like
Thank
I'll
you.
be like lifting and I'll be tuning into your lives. So it was always like a point of like purpose to be like, okay, like what does Brittany think about this? Or
For
like
sure.
what's because you're open about a pretty good amount of your personal life.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm always curious about like, okay, like what part of that story is affecting your beliefs today?
Mm.
Or is it completely disconnected from trauma? Is it just completely just like independent of any sort of experience? I'm always curious about that.
Yeah.
But it's funny that you're kind of like that you're kind of like me in a way. In a way. You're kind of like me in a sense where you're like, what was that?
Well, I think it's twofold. One, I think you do. I think that's why we get along right now. I think the theory I have is like, why do I get along with Rashad? One, I think like you ask really good questions, which means you're thinking. Like good questions don't
I
come out
try
of
to think.
anywhere, right? Like that means you're thinking
Yeah.
and you're listening. So the way you answer questions is like even if like sometimes I'll think like, oh God, I just spaced right there. What? And then I'm like, oh God. And then I'm like, wait, what happened? And then I like context my clue myself back to the conversation. Cause I'm not gonna lie, reading chat distracts the fuck out of me. But then I'm like, okay, I hope the conversation's going good. But then I'm like, oh, but he heard me because he responded correctly, which tells me like we're on the same page and like, okay. And like I'm always doing math in my and it's just like I think it's a part of also being a streamer, and then you're trying to do multiple things, and then you're also like worried you're not being. And then as the host, I'm like, oh my God, is he talking enough? Did I give him enough space? Like, should I ask him
Of
questions back?
course. Yeah.
And then it's like that kind of stuff. So you worry, like I think the worries also comes from a place of like consideration, but also like you don't want someone to feel like, what am I doing here?
Oh yeah, I mean, even with me, like, even though I'm the guest, I'm always like, okay, like, how do I make sure the host is not like, oh, this guy, like, you
Yeah,
know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Like, where are we
yeah.
going with this?
You have such good
Um,
energy. Like you seem like a very like a good person. You know. Yeah,
I'll
I would
take
be
that.
very disappointed if I heard some things about you that like would make me go, not Rashad too, man. Not him too, bro. So you better
I
keep it
hope
up, bro.
not.
My audience likes you right now. Don't you turn Sneeko on us or nothing like that.
That is crazy. You know, I try to keep my nose out of trouble.
That's
I
true.
try
That's
to,
true.
I do try to, have the most what, who, when. It's just, I try to be like that as much as possible. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I like the conversation. I thought it
Good.
was really, really good.
Good.
Um, and I'm always gonna be like tuning in and watching and shit
I
like that to
appreciate that.
see. So I put in a personal request to hear you talk about Aiden Ross possibly getting Tate arrested.
Noted. Noted.
So
I will tell you this one
mhm.
last thing. You remember when we talked about growing old and you being 80?
Yeah,
Okay, you know how I want to be a grandma that makes bread for kids, before school and stuff like that?
yeah.
I also kind of want to be on OnlyFans. I also, you know what I'm saying? Like, I also kind of want to be the old lady who's like just flopping them out, Do your tits hang low? Do they wobble to and fro? Can you tie 'em in a knot? Can you tie 'em in a bow? You know? I just kind of want to let them hang loose. So, you might not be looking forward to getting old, but I'm just going to, remind you that if you get old, you could be the old guy on stream, bro. Have you seen that old guy who plays shooter games? Who plays like first person shooters?
You're not convincing me to do
I
this. Okay?
love him, bro.
I am going to be dead. I will not be
Bro. You're
seeing
younger
any
than me. You
Brittany
gotta
sign.
stay around long enough
I
to see my
will
flopping tits.
no.
Listen to me. Granny fans? Yes, chat. Granny fans?
Yo, yo. In Jesus' name, I don't even believe in Jesus, but like
Only
in Jesus'
grands?
name,
Only grands? Oh, my chat's funny,
oh,
bro. You guys are funny, bro.
nah,
Oh,
nah,
yeah.
nah, nah.
I'm
No,
just
that
saying,
is the
Rashad,
craziest.
there's so many reasons to grow old.
We
There's
went
so
from
many good
talking about
reasons to
making
grow
bread for these
old.
kids
That's
to
my day
only
job.
grands.
My day job, my night job. I just want to be
When these
free and
kids get
old.
when they get the when they get the bread from you and they ask you about the shit on the internet, what are you gonna say? I'll
I'm
be
gonna
dead, so I
say,
won't know. But
that's what a human body looks like, and that's what you're gonna look like in 80 years too, bitch. I'm gonna say that's how God made me, and to dust, okay, dust to dust.
nah,
I'm just saying, I
this
can't wait to see you
conversation is
old. I can't wait to be an 80-year-old
crazy.
grandma. Rashad. I'm gonna be like,
Nah,
yo, let's
nah,
see if
this is
Rashad's
crazy.
online. Let's see if Rashad's online.
Uh-oh, Brittany's frozen.
Then we can head
Okay.
out. But is there anything like you want to tell chat? No?
Oh no,
Okay.
just I guess bye chat. I mean,
Yeah.
what else
Yeah.
to say?
Yeah,
But
okay.
great talk, by the way.
Good
Still.
talk. Great talk. I
Mhm.
will link your channel down below. And hit me up anytime you want to collab.
Stuck in my head, in real life while in bed, my belly's being fed and I'm okay. I'm just fine, yet all I do is whine. Not to you in my mind, cause I know I don't make sense. I've been nothing but blessed, so why's my life a mess? Please tell me, cause I'm sick of thinking. Yeah, I'm sick of reaching out for the truth. is a